Hello, this is another wonderful episode of Coffee and Queefs with Big Zana, where we break down, girly movies and just have a great time and try not to get verklempt when we talk about Baba Walters. Not Baba Walters, Barbra Streisand. Either or, they made me verklempt. Now with me is Christine. Rayson, how you doing, sweetheart? How you feeling?
I'm doing well, sir. I don't even know how to. I didn't expect.
You're supposed to talk like a character from Steel Magnolias or something. It's not hard. Like I have onions in the eyes.
I used to talk like that, but then the bridges of Madison County fell on top of me, and now I talk like this. How are you doing, Dane?
I'm doing great. Sorry, I'm actually losing my mind in all this, in the best way possible. Maybe I've watched too much wrestling. Maybe I've been isolated at my house too much. Maybe it's just my favorite thing recreationally to do every once in a while. I don't know. It's probably a combination of everything, but I am so happy for all of the new listeners that decided to check out this week to get that opening. But actually, this is not Queefs and Coffee. This is actually another episode of Wrestling Geeks Alliance, the weekly show and where me and brother Christopher Ray Patton, the guy that we we're just talking to, we break down wrestling news and some of the events. We review them, preview them, and whatnot for your pleasure. So we got a lot to talk about today, and let's get past the silliness. But all past listeners, thank you for enjoying some of our antics, and that's all I got to say about that. I'm Forrest Gump style, man. Chris, how are you doing?
Man, I'm doing good. I just cracked open a beer. It's this weird work schedule I think is messing with me. It's I feel like I'm working more now that I'm at home, which is kind of crazy. But there's the slight distractions throughout the day, so you have your idea of what time is supposed to be during your workday, and it's shifted. And I'm sure this is for everyone that's working at home, which is kind of crazy. But so I just finished up work and cracking open a cold beer, excited to talk about wrestling and whatever the hell else comes up on this show at this point. It's got to go better. Skates to Throats, which I was unfortunately had a stomach flu, so I missed. So if you're a Skates to Throats listener, missed that one. Apologize. We'll be on the next one. But how are you doing, bud?
I can't complain. Just doing the whole home thing, and I'm happy that for the most part things are going good in my immediate life. It's just it's crazy what's going on. We always try to contribute a little bit of a pathway for you guys to kind of like steer clear of a lot of what's going on right now. But I have to actually say big rest in peace to member of Geek Vibes Nation, someone that's contributed towards articles and updating our Facebook page, and I'm sure he's done it on Twitter too, and he's been a part of many of our shows, including Geek Vibes Live, our flagship show, and Gerald Gibson ultimately unfortunately passed away due to actually the coronavirus, and I feel terrible for it to hear that. He was an extremely nice guy, good dude. And just extremely nice, always try to interact with people, and always was cheerful, always was positive about movies that you might take a couple cracks at. And it's unfortunate that that's what's going on. Just be careful out there, really take this shit seriously. That he lived in New Jersey, and I don't know exactly if that might have been because of what the spread from New York City, basically, and how bad it's over there. I don't know those details. All I know is I lost someone that was a good dude, and I considered a friend, and just very, very unfortunate. So like I said, just talk to your loved ones, keep up with them. We'll get through this. Just practice social distancing, and that's all I got to really say. But anyways, I'll pass to you, Chris, and then we'll start going over some of this wrestling stuff.
Obviously very, very sad news, and sending good thoughts and vibes out to everyone in his family and friends and everyone affected by this, even in the Geek Vibes community. Um, I didn't have as much exposure as you did, Dane. I've been on maybe a couple podcasts, Mismatch podcast with you guys. He always came off as a really great dude. Very unfortunate passing. And I harken back to what you said. Just be safe out there, and if the people you love, make sure you're talking to them, and try to just be a kind person, as I try to preach on the show as much as possible when I'm not burying wrestlers. But very, very sad, and I think this deserves like a 10-second moment of silence for sure.
Absolutely. So we'll start that 10-second, and then we'll move on with our show. So right now, let's give 10 seconds for Gerald. All right. Thank you guys for listening. And big, like I said, big rest in peace for Gerald, and just all the love that we can send to his friends and family. But let's keep on talking about wrestling and talk in a very different direction with the wrestling, I would say, because the third episode of Dark Side of the Ring came on, and it was a very crazy, aggressive episode about the life and tales of New Jack. Just some crazy stories of, a lot of the ones that people have heard, like the mass transit fight, the two fights with Vic Grimes getting thrown off scaffolds, him going off on I forgot what his name was, but it was something Gypsy, some 70-year-old wrestler, and just destroying him. And then lots of people getting stabbed, and just a concept of being a product of your environment and how that can affect you. And really, the concept, I think, of the documentary, Chris, was to show you that sometimes the line of wrestler and the person in reality, that line is blurred, and sometimes that's to an extent like someone that would not be that focused with violence, someone like a Macho Man Randy Savage. Everyone always talks about Savage was like he was in person, and like he was always that intense. He talked like that. It might not have been as over exaggerated, but that pretty much was his personality. There's lots of wrestlers that kind of have that style, but New Jack's story kind of takes it to a different level. His upbringing was not good. He witnessed his dad stab his mom, I think it was 7 times, when he was a little kid, right in front of him, in front of the whole family, from what he says. So a lot of the choices of what style of heel they decided to put with him in Smoky Mountain really kind of reflected what was going on a lot within the 90s. This is Rodney King getting beat. This is O.J. Simpson. Stuff was very tense at that time period, kind of similar to a lot of aspects of how they were probably about a year or so ago, and even today. But this was a kind of a social reflection on it, and he wasn't in, cartoony WWF or cartoony WCW. He was in Smoky Mountain, and then from there, ECW, and then any other hardcore styled wrestling faction afterwards. So it was always down and gritty, and he was always someone that was just violent. Before we get into the details of the breakdowns of the events, what was your take, just your first take on this documentary after watching it?
As a documentary, looking at it just as a documentary of things that you may have knowledge about as a wrestling fan, I don't think it was anything groundbreaking. It wasn't anything that we hadn't seen or heard before. Many of the same takes they've had with New Jack is the same exact story, because that is New Jack. I think we missed out on, I think it's Eric Klaus. I'm probably pronouncing his last name. His family maybe being involved would have provided some new light, but also understandable of why they wouldn't be there. Necessarily. For those that don't know, that is mass transit, aka the guy from the mass transit incident. we saw some neat interviews, people like D'Lo Brown having reactions to possibly some things that he didn't see. But outside of that, there wasn't anything that really like hooked me as being groundbreaking. As far as it being put together, it's pretty good overall. There were some cool shadow figures of Sabu that showed up randomly during the ECW time period, which I marked out for because I love Sabu. Trying to think. I mean, I think you summed up kind of the beginnings of New Jack pretty well as far as who he was. But I think to sum it up the best was what Jim Cornette says at the very first, the beginning of the episode itself, which is like, I hope you guys aren't gonna. Basically, he said, like, I hope you guys aren't gonna hold me on trial for or on court for this. But he said, I never knew who New Jack was as a person. He's like, New Jack told me a bunch of different things, but he also was working me to some extent. So not the exact words of Jim Cornette. I actually sent it to you earlier, but what he was basically saying is like, he never really knew about New Jack's past or who New Jack was or what New Jack was coming into the business. And I think that kind of bled over to the rest of New Jack's career, because New Jack, to me, it's not necessarily the wrestling bled over to the person as much as the person was the wrestler. Like, that was that person.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, for sure. I just thought it was very telling. I like the only comedic part. I don't know if we should laugh at this, but it's kind of hard not to. But when they were explaining Mustafa and how like Sandman was great in all the segments in this, he was hilarious. Especially when he admitted that, oh, that's why New Jack was pissed off about that. Yeah, that fucking makes sense. Like, knowing how crazy New Jack is and how, don't fuck with me. He was doing a lot of blow. But the Mustafa stuff, where they were talking about how he would, roll blunts of pencil shavings and try to get high off of it. And even New Jack, who's a role model at this point, was telling him like, dude, you don't need to be fucking doing that. That's going to cause like major brain damage. And him just making weird noises and stuff like that. And like D'Lo Brown being like, no, that was really him. Like that's how crazy he was. And it was weird because, correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought Homicide was a part of their little faction as well. But maybe they didn't have him in it, or maybe I'm just mixing that up. But cool stuff in the early stuff with Smoky Mountain. It was crazy how they reflected the Rodney King thing with Ricky Morton. I didn't know they did that, and that's pretty fucking racy, that they were basically trying, even though it bothered them, obviously, trying to get that audience to just completely go over the limit with racial slurs and shit. Like, that was them trying to get themselves over as heels. Like that just even starting off that way, it just shows you the direction of where New Jack's going to go with his career.
Yeah, and I mean, one of the best like things you could see out of that is the New Jack promos in Smoky Mountain, because I think they were great. It's also something that Jim Cornette buries in modern wrestling, or even in ECW. Anytime someone gets a little too serious or a little too close to that line, he wants it dialed back, or wants it like kind of more like old school wrestling, when in Smoky Mountain he was doing the complete opposite, which was definitely pushing the limit of how many times you could drop the N-bomb, so to speak, on TV and have babies hanging from ropes and different things, like saying, "What's up, OJ Simpson?" Like those kind of things he was pushing the limits on, and maybe not even realizing. And I think he's never even looked at it in retrospect, other than like, oh, that was just New Jack. New Jack was New Jack. We had to put out a disclaimer saying this is not the views of Smoky Mountain Wrestling. Like, he knew what he was doing. So if you guys have gotten worked by him talking about some of the hardcore stuff or some weird angles that maybe you liked that he thought was offensive, just keep in mind that he kind of was a brain behind the Gangstas in general, and telling New Jack to go out and be
rile them up,
essentially rile up the racist white honky tonk hillbilly fans, which at that point in time, unfortunately, during our country, you had a big split, specifically where they were at, which is Tennessee, Kentucky, a lot of the areas they were working, even Georgia to some extent, not going to exclude us, but I thought one of the key parts of that was New Jack specifically talking about, like, you never get used to hearing that word regardless, about, white racist white fans spouting racial slurs at him, etc. He was like, no, it wasn't that. I mean, I was good then, and like I got heat, but I didn't fucking like it. And then D'Lo Brown kind of commenting on that. I thought that was kind of enlightening for the beginning of New Jack's career, which to me is probably the best version of New Jack. There's just great promos and some of the in-ring work he had there, obviously, like you said, with Ricky Morton and some of the things they did after that was some of his best in-ring work outside of just doing crazy spots and shit in ECW, which is what he kind of became known for, which they talk about a little later in the documentary.
Yeah, I guess the next big part that happened was a mass transit thing when he joins ECW. He meets Sandman, and they're doing some it looked like some type of outdoor wrestling thing, and Sandman went on last, and he even said to try to get some of the heat off what just happened, he bled like a pig to try to, like, you know, because of it just due to the situation. You had this big guy, he's wrestling little people, and Paul Heyman gets word of this video, and he thinks that he'll be fun and entertainment, probably wanting to put it on like at the beginning of like whatever happened. But, you know, something happened. Axel Rotten, I believe, couldn't make it. And somehow it was asked upon this kid who was called Mass Transit. He, you know, was like a bus driver style gimmick. Big dude, said he was 21, 22. He was actually 17. And he came with, I guess, I forgot what the little person's name was, but, you know, he was his manager. He was going to be in a match now with New Jack, and very different situation of probably replaying, you know, the match that you've done beforehand and going in the match with New Jack. Well, what pissed off New Jack, this is not a good excuse, but just in wrestling, concept of respect is very clear, and he started spouting out the ideas of how he wanted to break down the match. Very ballsy of this kid. And New Jack was not having it. He basically said, get in there and we'll go from there. The only thing that he promised him was one of the requests by this kid was getting busted open, basically, and bleeding. So New Jack got pissed, took it upon himself to use what was it? It was like a scalpel, like the end of a scalpel, like one of those knives, driven into some type of stick, basically. And he carved his ass up. He was trying to stab him on his forehead, but he wouldn't actually puncture, so he just dragged it across his forehead, and the dude was bleeding until they stopped the match and had to, you know, cater towards him. And even after, while medics are taking care of him, New Jack's talking about he doesn't give a shit. He bleeds to death and puts his foot on his stomach. The kid's dad's screaming in the audience. When we go in the back, he's screaming racial slurs, wanting to fight New Jack. Security won't let him back there. New Jack even said that if he came close to him, he would have murdered him. And with all this, you kind of start believing the guy in it. But just a crazy situation. This was kind of like this had some type of mythos back in the day with wrestling fans. Like when we were collecting and trading videos and shit like that. Like the mass transit incident was something that was like, I don't think a lot of people saw it until later. And just a fucking crazy ass situation, and just showed you how nuts this dude was. I don't know. How do you feel about it, Chris?
So we talked about the Stone Cold Steve Austin podcast with Undertaker, talking about going in and wrestling Bruiser Brody and maybe being a bit too big for his britches, so to speak, and getting a receipt. Like a normal wrestler in that situation, yeah, maybe they kind of put you in your place and show that you're the rookie. Not with New Jack, apparently. I will say there's a weird thing now for me with Devon Dudley, because I never heard that piece where they just toss Devon out and Devon does nothing the rest of the match, and they just let this poor guy get basically beat to death. Really terrifying. I mean, if you go back and look at it in retrospect, as far as things people get mad about now with chair shots and headshots and stuff, what they were doing in ECW obviously was that times 10. But I mean, he gashed this guy so hard, he was not just bleeding, like not just a bad cut like Randy Orton getting elbowed by Brock Lesnar. This thing was gushing. So the video of it, the proclaimed video of it, even back in the day where you could download it or tape trade it like you were talking about, is the fact that his head was literally, I mean, if you bust a vessel, your head squirts. So if you watch that documentary, it actually shows that piece where you see like a little bloodstream just spurting like a fountain, which is kind of crazy. And I mean, this is a weird thing to talk about because it's not as much as New Jack as a wrestler as New Jack as a person to some extent, because to do that to someone, whether you think they disrespected you or not, and what happened, and the fact that you were trying to take a plea deal out of it, knows that you knew your actions were not anywhere near what would be considered responsible as someone in the ring. It's a hard thing to comment on. Yeah, New Jack was a crazy, probably is still a little bit crazy if you had to wrestle him and disrespected him. But it's a weird situation to talk about. And unfortunately, I mean, they were able to get their way out of it, and this guy went on to do some other horrendous crimes. And I don't know if the documentary is more objectively like hardcore wrestling is bad, New Jack is a crazy man who deserves to be put in a penitentiary, or like I don't know what the end goal of the documentary is, because they never really stated what that was. You didn't have any analysts come on and say like, hey, this was really bad for the sport in general. Because you look at mass transit and you look at something like even something smaller, like when Cody, the gimmick chair failed and Cody got busted open and we start talking about concussions and stuff. Like if this would have happened now, this guy would have been in prison for sure. Just very, very different today versus then, and what ECW was, and just all around a little bit weird to look at in a retrospect. And that's the first time I've probably seen that footage since I was in middle school or high school, if I'm being completely honest. And yeah, just overall weird scenario.
Yeah, man. So New Jack would go to jail for this. Had a lot of charges, could be facing major jail time. And this is the first time he kind of avoids jail due to a situation. But basically, since they show Paul Heyman doing his whole act, and New Jack was like he was completely working the whole entire audience, basically insinuating that Paul Heyman committed some form of perjury. But it's Paul Heyman. I'm sure that he was crying. The whole layout of what he said he did was kind of hilarious. How he's like he called him the N-word, and they're like, sir, can you please elaborate on that and give the full word? And he goes, I'm sorry, New Jack. He called them, and then, obviously we know the word that he said followed by that. But Jack laughing about it. It's just a fucked up situation. Basically, Chris, it didn't matter about the amount that they had. He agreed to it. He had the little person who was pissed off him at the time admitting that, he agreed to everything. And all that to go against that guy because they weren't getting along. And New Jack somehow got him apparently on WWE for some segments. Which was interesting, maybe through Paul, I'm assuming. But they dropped those charges, and he is good to go. It doesn't suffer anything. The other kid, he couldn't feel above his head from where the cut was, and from something completely differently, died a couple years later of complications through gastric bypass surgery. So what the fuck?
Yeah, and I think the crazy, when the lawyer said he could get him off, I think it depended on the use of a racial slur. If you take that back to even what we were talking about earlier and some of the stuff he did in Smoky Mountain, it was a very hot topic. If you've watched any of the OJ documentaries or the one that Cuba Downing Jr. was in, God, I just slaughtered his name. If you've watched any of that stuff, the story of Thurman being racist, or even the Dave Chappelle skit, where that became a big pending point on court cases, and obviously he talks about the jury and who was there and what was said. But as far as I know, the actual wrestler Mass Transit never made that comment. It was more so towards the dad after the fact. So a lot of the pending trial was one of the members, I guess it was called the Tiny Towers, which is a pretty good name, honestly, as far as a little person group wrestling. It was on their defense of hey, he agreed to this. He knew what he was getting into. He knew he was going to get bladed. He said that was fine. And even if you go back to that day, the defense, even in the clip they showed in the documentary, was defense that like he knew what he was getting into, essentially. But like, you don't really know what you're getting into, I guess, with New Jack to some extent based on this documentary. And maybe if you're going to do a blade job, as we've learned from other people, Abdullah the Butcher, for instance, you just do your own blade job. Just do it yourself. Don't ask someone else to do it. I mean,
do you think that if they were to have fought each other, that they would have killed each other?
Who, Abdullah and New Jack?
Yeah.
No, they probably would have just worked a normal ass match, and Abdullah's was so big at the time that they would have been at the peak of their careers that they probably would have just worked around each other and both got color. And
how about this scenario? Okay, you get Holly and New Jack completely wasted and coked out, and then have them fight in a match.
Well, I mean, at that point, there's been these questions posed to New Jack before. He was like, I would have brought a gun or a knife or something and killed the person if they shot on him. So I would assume something like that would have happened.
This is the most fucking crazy ass character in wrestling, man. I mean, I don't think anyone, I don't want to say the thug gimmick, but like anyone try to do that to that level. Like Nation of Domination, that was very different the way that they handled it. The only other person I can think of is Ron Truth Killings at the beginning, but like look at fucking R-Truth afterwards. He is a very, very different character in wrestling when it comes down to it.
I think it wasn't really a gimmick, though.
Yeah, that's true.
You know what I mean? I think that's what, when you were talking about like sometimes wrestling blurs into your personality and blurs into who you are, I think you could also go the other way where sometimes your personality blurs into wrestling. And maybe you see that, especially if you're in ECW, you see that as a way of getting aggression out. Unfortunately, for some of these poor dudes that New Jack faced, I think that might be the case. Who am I to speak, though? I'm not a psychiatrist or anything. I'm just spitting what I've seen and heard from New Jack over years and years of listening to New Jack shoot interviews about the same things over and over and over again. And the end story is, like, New Jack could have been a great wrestler if he could have separated wrestling from his personal life and maybe made it to the WWE. It's a great promo. In Smoky Mountain was a good in-ring wrestler. And definitely something very different. But what we're seeing from the documentary and all the shoot interviews that we've all seen and know and love, I guess, to some extent, is that those two things never really separated. And I'm sure that he would be the first person to tell me that to fuck off and then possibly stab me in a parking lot about this conversation.
Yeah, man, probably. That's the scary part for sure. I don't know, with this documentary, you were talking about like people not knowing what they're going to get themselves into. I think that continues. With ECW, we had the pay-per-view was called Living Dangerously. It was March 12th, and New Jack suffered legitimate brain damage and a broken leg, permanently blinding himself in the right eye when him and his opponent, Vic Grimes, it says it fell around a 15-foot scaffold. What really happened was Vic was not game to jump, and so New Jack said, fuck that, and we're going. And when they jumped, they missed every fucking table, and Vic Grimes, big body, he was a big dude, fell right on top of New Jack's head, crushing his head, having, brain juices, if you will, come out of his skull, and just really fucking him up. He comes back a year later, Chris. They have a comeback, match with the two of them, with the even bigger scaffold, with a whole pyramid of chairs, and Sandman even admits that he was with New Jack when he buys the taser and tells him what he's going to do, tases the shit out of Vic Grimes at the top of it, and then tosses his ass off of the scaffold, trying to get him to hit the floor. Probably would have killed him if that happened, but luckily he caught a couple tables and just, went really hard into the mat and only suffered some minor injuries, thankfully, but admitting, once again, he tried to fucking kill someone. Like, and like it was nothing. Like there was no type of remorse whatsoever with him.
Yeah, it's such a different tone episode than the last the Benoit series that we watched at this point. Now that I'm thinking about it, to think about the fact that someone gets like a drug charge for 10 years for marijuana versus some of the things that New Jack did to people is fucking baffling. But that's maybe a different conversation for a different show. Yeah, I mean, this one was also one of those ones. It was a hot click, early downloads, some tape trading, etc. Vic Grimes getting tossed off this thing, and later on in shoot interviews, like you said, he was like, "Hell yeah, I tried to kill him." He's like, "He hurt me. He almost killed me." So basically, what's the old adage? It is an eye for an eye. So yep. I guess that's how he saw it. And even New Jack says, my only he didn't say it in this interview, but I have in other shoots heard him say something to the effect of, I wish I would have threw him harder. And I don't know what that necessarily means about New Jack or where New Jack was at in his life at that point.
And also, can we put in perspective? Okay, yes, they agreed on the scaffold match and the bump. But the concept of you hurt me, you took me out for a year. New Jack fucking forced him to fall off of it, pulled him on top of them. They miss every table, and the guy falls on his fucking head. And I mean, it's like, that's kind of, just don't kill me, New Jack. But like, that's kind of your bad. And then to retaliate about it, the guy doesn't try calling you throughout the year, which, hey, he probably should have. Maybe he's terrified of you because you fucking try to kill him. And then you actually try to kill him again, admittingly, trying to say that you're going to throw him to the ground. It's just fucking nuts, man. Just wow.
Yeah, it's definitely a different level of receipt that we're used to talking about on this show. That's for sure.
I would say so. All right, so in like the last two segments were two other situations where shit kind of got crazy. It was like he did a random show for, I don't think it was like a big promotion. XPW, I believe, was the name of the promotion. But he went against longtime wrestler Gypsy Joe. I'm going to see when Gypsy Joe got started since I have my phone in front of me.
I mean, it did say he was 71, so fucking
71 years old. Ago. He started in 1951, from Puerto Rico. Didn't look like a big dude. New Jack, he basically came up to him. I don't even think he gave him some pointers or notes. He just said that, like, hey, kid, if you come out here, I can teach you some stuff. And his whole entire concept was basically, I guess the Ultimate Warrior must have stole it off of Gypsy Joe of no selling everything. And the whole concept of his words triggered, New Jack. Pretty much for almost all of these assaults, right at the beginning, New Jack admits, like, oh, I was high on cocaine. Like, it was, like, very much similar to the Dave Chappelle skit with, Rick James. And Rick James pretty much admits on every story that he was high on cocaine. This same fucking thing. Real with wrestling, which is supposed to be a fictitious sport, like, a played sport with this crazy guy that basically just gets in the ring with him and just kicks the shit out of him. He just violently destroys him throughout the whole entire arena, throwing chairs at him, stabbing him with things, and people in the audience are fucking just like completely like bewildered, saying racial shit to him and stuff like that, which just fuels him to keep on just destroying this dude. Gypsy Joe is trying.
I will say on the racial shit, I've never seen that video clip, so I'd want to go back and watch it because once again, this spins into one of those New Jack tales, and this would have been like in mid 2000, like 2006, 2007. This isn't Smoky Mountain, per to say.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. No, I do. The violence itself, just him realizing that he at one part saw an old dude and then after a while just did not happen. And, he basically, I think Joe like headbutted him in the nose, and then New Jack, he got a chain. You know, he just started whooping his ass with a bat. He hit him a couple times in the head with the bat. He took barbed wire to his face. I mean, this is in front of like a gym full of people. And and then the last one that was like the big ending of and I'm sure there's been other minor things here and there throughout everything, but he was working for a promoter. I forgot what his name was, but he actually knew he was like the only person that seemed to know a good side of Jack and how he loved to cook and like, you know, he loved music and he was really, really funny, joking guy. That we didn't see that, and I don't think most of his friends, even Sandman, saw that side of Jack. They just saw that killer. And it's just strange that this promoter then explains and sets up that one of his other wrestlers, this redheaded white dude, I forgot what his name was, might have been something red, you know, has this match with New Jack. He requests it. He has some ideas with New Jack. New Jack lays out what they're actually going to do. He kind of gets pissy about it, gets the hell out of there. New Jack gets mad about it, admits he goes and does some blow, and then gets in a match with them. He said that he had a real, like, Wolverine, like, you know, the comic book character claw thing. There was 3 metal claws, and I've seen these before. They sell them at, like, you know, weapons places and shit. And the middle one had broke off, so he put that in his hit it somewhere, basically. And at one part in the match, one of the other guys trying to, you know, go into business for himself, if you will. It's kind of funny talking about a guy like that going against New Jack, who probably did it all the time. New Jack takes out the blade and starts stabbing him, and even his friend D'Lo Brown never saw something like this and stabbed him, I think, 9 times. The reason why it was 9 times is because they said and claimed that it was 15, and New Jack goes, no, it was definitely 9. I counted the amount of times I stabbed him like I wanted to fucking do it. Like, you know, it was definitely 9. And the fucked up thing is, the dude, New Jack's going to go away for jail for a long time because of this, but the guy wants to drop the charges for an angle for them to travel up Georgia. Well, he drops charges, New Jack gets out, and never talks to the motherfucker ever again. Chris.
I mean, in New Jack's defense on that one, he did say, I was worried about retaliation in which I might get stabbed in the ring or something. So, I mean, if I stabbed a guy, I wouldn't necessarily want to go work in a wrestling match with him for the follow-up of that. I mean, he says, and they even showed it, D'Lo said it, and a couple other people that were watching it, said that the guy stiffed New Jack, which is probably a fucking bad idea. Yeah, but still, at this point, New Jack shouldn't have been wrestling, and no one should have been booking him. I mean, he had thrown a guy from a fucking scaffold trying to kill him, and it was a well-known fact in the wrestling world at the time. I mean, this was all over dirt sheets and magazines and everything when he tried to kill Vic Grimes. So the fact that any booker would even book him makes me disrespect that guy as a booker to some extent. Like, I get it. He is a guy you can get in, and I'm not trying to take food off New Jack's table and whatever, but like, as a booker, if your choices are like New Jack and like, I don't know, like Hornswoggle or someone else that may have fallen out, like Buff Bagwell or someone who may have fallen out of a major promotion, maybe you just go with that guy as opposed to New Jack, knowing kind of the track record with it. We'll say with experienced workers, you never hear this about New Jack, but with anyone that he doesn't really know or like someone that has slighted him slightly, you hear these weird ass stories about New Jack. So maybe they should have went with someone a little different.
Yeah, he's definitely not the Mickey Mouse of pro wrestling, that's for sure. Not clean and shiny. But hey, man, he's definitely a personality within it. I don't condone anything he's done. He probably knows he's a pretty fucking awful person for doing a lot of that shit, and I don't think he cares. And I guess that's the bottom line, if you will. At the end of it, they kind of asked friends of his, people like Sandman, like D'Lo, like, do you know the difference? And we kind of talked about this with Jim Cornette's answers and shit like that. And I don't think there is a difference. I think that is just a moniker for him, and that he went into wrestling and used that as a way to get out some of his violent tendencies based on everything in his life, building back, or going back, I should say, from his childhood. So Very interesting episode, to say the least. Very violent. There's not a lot of wrestlers like New Jack. You know, I don't know if that's a good thing or if a bad thing or whatever. But yeah. Any closing statements before we move on, Chris?
I will say it's a bad thing from people not being able to push the limitations of what is right and wrong on wrestling, and maybe having these kind of cutting edge promos that he was having in Smoky Mountain. That realism and that level of heat that he had there is something to be wary of. And also, like I said, he had some really good matches there. I think New Jack, as a wrestler, if you could separate all the other crazy shit, which is pretty much impossible, specifically during his Smoky Mountain run, I don't know if they just had him calm down or if it was. I have no idea on what happened, but there's definitely a transformation between him hitting like his maybe like a year and a half into ECW to what he was in Smoky Mountain with the Gangstas and what that crew was, and what that some of the social lines they tried to divide, and the way they were able to get over his heels, whether you agree with it or not, because it is kind of racist. Super fucking racist if you actually think about it, but he was able to get that shit over, and his promos were great. Not only promos against like white people, but the even stuff he said against the NAACP. There was a lot of things there to take away from New Jack being a good promo and a decent in-ring worker, working with, Rock and Roll Express and things like that. Like, they're not going to put this man in the ring with Rock and Roll Express if they thought he was actually going to kill one of the members of the Rock and Roll Express. So something snapped and changed at some point in this man's career. I will say, if you go back and watch some of that early Smoky Mountain wrestling and the promos that he cut, they were pretty fucking good. Maybe up there in maybe up there in top 30, top 20 promos, especially if you consider, if you're not easily offended. So I'll say that about him, but everything else after that, the mass transit shit already is kind of a mark on his name. We don't know what happened in that ring. We don't know what was said, or etc. We know what was said afterwards, and there's video of what was said afterwards and such. But, the fact that he was going to plead guilty for assaulting this man with his X-Acto knife kind of should have shaped the rest of his career, and maybe bookers should have been a little bit smarter on booking him. What I will say is he did take some high risks that we saw from other wrestlers like Jeff Hardy and, John Danzig and in CZW, and I think they even alluded to that a little bit with ultra violent hardcore wrestling being associated with New Jack. So do
you think Nick Gage was a fan of New Jack?
Nick Gage, maybe. Nick Gage also crazy. Apparently not crazy in the ring, just outside of the ring. He seems like he actually he had a match with Brian Alvarez, who I'm assuming that was a very soft work match.
God, why would he want it?
I would say Brian Alvarez had less experience than Gypsy Joe
Jesus
in the ring.
Gypsy Joe.
I guess, Brian Alvarez did have the insurance of Tom Lawler being in there just in case. So there's that. But that's just recent. That's like a year ago. And like I said, most of Nick Gage's, Nick Gage has done some crazy ass shit to himself and to other people in CZW, but none of his shit ever came off as a shoot. It's more of his outside, he tried to rob a liquor store or gas station, went to jail for that for a little bit. You don't hear any of these stories about Nick Gage. The actual only wrestler you ever hear about shooting this hard in the ring is it Baba just beating the shit out of that guy? That's the only other shoot I can think of that's even close to and that's not even close. It's not even close by a fucking mile of what New Jack would do to people if they really slighted him as far as wrestling them in the ring. You hear people, you hear about people stiffing each other, but you don't really throwing them in. Vader's head almost got knocked off, but he wrote that off to Stan Hansen almost being blind.
I still love how Vader, you can hear him go "Damn it, Stan! You knocked my eye out of my skull." He's just so kind of meek about it because he didn't really have that aggressive voice. I just found a really sad video at the end of the match between Nick Gage and New Jack, and they're both just bloodied up. Hardcore wrestling's just never been my thing so much. Some of the crazy shit they do, though. Holy fuck.
I mean, some of my favorite wrestlers are grounded in hardcore wrestling, so I can't say that. I mean, Terry Funk and Sabu's brutal ass barbed wire match is up there as one of my favorite matches.
That's hard to watch, man. That ending when they're wrapped together and you just like, Jesus fucking Christ.
But
they
it's
became
great.
One person.
But it's great. But there's also a storytelling element, and New Jack's matches when he went hardcore, a lot of it was high spots, which was a big thing in ECW. I think it's just more of wrestling changing a little bit. And now, as I'm older, not as bloodthirsty anymore, and Okada's having like 60-minute fucking great matches without any blood or anything, it kind of puts things in perspective a little bit. But yeah, I not necessarily want to watch CZW Tournament of Death per se, but I'm also not the anti-hardcore guy. I don't want it to come off like that.
Oh,
but,
yeah. I don't care if they fucking do it, but it's just not for me. Especially when you go into like, especially like parts of Japan hardcore wrestling where it's, I don't know. I mean, I used to watch. That's the funny thing is like, if I got a chance to get some FMW to watch Mr. Pogo go against Terry Funk in a fucking landmine match, I would think that was awesome when I was a kid. Now it's like, all right, that's good. I'm fine. I'll just.
You know what it is? One day you woke up and your body hurt more than it used to.
And I was like, I don't know why anyone would do that. That's so dumb.
That's funny is like we talk about like neck spots and like people in ECW were throwing people from like 15 feet off a scaffold and shit. You know what I mean? Like that's where I think that's an age.
Not only that, a plus 300-pound plus dude off the fucking scaffold.
But I mean,
you know what sucks the most about that whole entire thing, Chris, is the geometry person that put up those tables perfectly and was like, wow, that looks really great. Like, when they go through it, it's going to be pretty devastating, but no one's going to get that hurt because there's so many of them. And New Jack's like, hold my beer. And he fucking just tossed them.
How disappointed do you think the indie promotion was where they went out and spent like, let's say they're $40 a table.
Me and you have budget on those fucking tables.
Me and you have been to indie shows, and most of the time they use old doors. I don't know if you've noticed that. Instead of using tables, they'll use old doors between sawhorses, or they'll set up an old door in the corner and throw someone through an old door. Back in the day, apparently,
they
would just blow the entire budget on like enfolding tables that New Jack would purposely miss. I mean, I guess maybe they were relieved. They were like, we still got the moment. And now we get to reuse these tables. Maybe it's a solid investment if New Jack's involved. I don't know. I'm
still wondering. We didn't really actually go into it. It's not your fault. I was about to say, you didn't answer me. All right, like I said, you get Bob Holly and you get New Jack both really drunk and fucked up on cocaine, and you let them fight. Who do you think's gonna win?
Bob Holly's just an asshole. I think New Jack has proven to the world that he's an actual crazy person that will never stop coming. So, I mean, who do I think would live? Maybe New Jack. Like,
but multiple people might get stabbed throughout the duration of this.
I mean, because even if let's say Bob Holly whips the shit out of him, there's nothing that's going to stop New Jack from like stabbing him later on.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's one of those things. Now, what would have been now? What's the real question is if you have a similar situation where like Brock Lesnar stiffs New Jack, and New Jack stabs Brock Lesnar. Is Brock Lesnar even phased? And then also, does New Jack walk out of that ring? That's the real question.
God, that would be like, I don't know. I forgot. There was something in a Batman comic. I think he stabbed Bane, and Bane like just looked at it like, "Are you fucking kidding me?" And just like Batman's hand and forced him to pull it back out. That's exactly what Brock Lesnar would do. If
he was like, if I would have had this 10 years earlier, we would have beat WCW and WWF.
Those motherfuckers.
So, I mean, what was your overall opinion of the show? I guess if we rate it out of 5, maybe we'll do the Benoit one and rate this one out of 5. What do you rate the Benoit 2-part series, and what do you rate this one on the scale of 5?
The Benoit two-parter was very well done. I learned a lot of new stuff. It was unfortunate information, anything I knew or didn't know, but I thought it was good. I'll probably give that documentary a 9. I thought it was very well made. It does have the luxury of being a 2-part episode, so there's more stuff, there's more meat. But I loved how they also situated Eddie's passing as just a big. It's like just as big of a part of the whole story. So that was good. And for New Jack, I probably 6.5, almost 7. I thought it was fine. It was interesting, but like you said, a lot of us diehard wrestling fans, at least I knew most of them. I didn't know the last two with Gypsy Joe and the redheaded dude, but I think most wrestling fans know that New Jack's fucking crazy. He's pretty goddamn gangster, and that's how he is, and he stabs motherfuckers if he wants to. Yeah, I don't know.
All right, so we're gonna do a scale of 10.
Oh,
I
sorry.
said 5. Yeah, it's fine. I would say the Benoits are like a solid 8.5 to me. That 2-part series I thought was really good. This one was like a 5 or a 6. So I'm kind of in the same ballpark as you as far as what it is. But like I said, I think more of it is that there was no emotional connection with any of the characters. They were just like, look how crazy New Jack is. And
This
that's
guy's
how the
a giant asshole.
that's basically how the entire documentary came off. And that's more of just New Jack, like Jim Cornette said at the very beginning of the episode. He's not going to tell you a lot about his childhood other than these 2 things, which I've heard in multiple shoot interviews. And the Vic Grimes stuff, like I said, I've heard. The mass transit stuff, I've heard. So it was a lot of repeated stuff, and you didn't have any kind of emotional connection to it like you did the Benoit stuff. Even going back to last year's season, like there were some other great ones there. Maybe we should even go back and rank
The
those.
Von Erichs. Oh.
The Von Erich one I think was a solid 8. That was a pretty fucking good one.
It's
better than
the
WWE
now
version.
I think now after it was better than the WWE version. It was even better than the mini 30 for 30 they did. They did like a half 30 for 30, so a 15-minute one about it. But the Von Erichs one is now the second most depressing out of all of them, I believe, after the Chris Benoit one. But that one is pretty. It's just a sad, sad fucking story. Not a lot of upside.
If you're mass transit, this is the first most saddest. Right? Like you're a 17-year-old kid, you just love wrestling, and this happened to you. Everyone's the hero of their own story. That's what I'm getting at.
All right, Chris. You know what? You can stick the hero of the mass transit up the booty. You should have been doing some wrestling in WWE, going against people like, well, whatever shitty gimmicks they had, the Duke the Dumpster Drozy and whatnot.
To be fair, he was 7.
Max Moon.
Can we talk about one thing before we leave this? Can we talk about how many bookers still booked New Jack after that?
I know, man. It's fucked up. Whatever for a $1, dude.
You know who didn't do that? Vince. And Vince gets a lot of scorn from a lot of people. But, the easy thing would have been like, we should get New Jack on the CCW show. Not even Vince could pull the trigger on that. He's like, I don't fucking know.
Here's even a better question. Who the fuck's the one evaluated? They're like, oh shit, Axel Rotten didn't make it. Who's someone that's kind of as tough as Axel Rotten that can do this? Hey, you fat kid, come here. Like what? Like no, that's stupid.
That goes back to Paul Heyman probably not paying people and the fact that it was a travel show, because I think they said it was in Massachusetts, so it had been outside of Philly, so everyone living in Philly probably bailed. Was he teaming with Devon Dudley? Like, why was Axel Rotten teaming with Devon Dudley to begin with? Like, I don't know what the storyline of that was to fucking begin with. But my guess would be like Bubba Ray's like, I don't have the fucking money to go to Massachusetts, Paul. You haven't paid me. That would be my guess.
You're saying the name of my state completely wrong. Next time I'll have to whack you, Chris. It's Massachusetts.
Okay, well, Massachusetts.
No, not Massachusetts. What the fuck was that? Massachusetts. You don't have to do a Peter Griffin voice. This fucking guy right here, this fucking wicked asshole. Fuck. All right. Anyways.
Are you sure? Are you sure that's not the voice you have to do?
Hey, where you from?
State?
Hey, where's AJ Styles from?
Hey man, I'm from Gainesville, Georgia, boy.
Gainesville, fucking Georgia.
Gainesville,
All
Georgia.
right.
Home of the Red Elephants. Roll Tide. Roll
fuck
Red
Tide. Well, not that one in Alabama. They can fuck off. All right. The Undertaker started off. Kind of speaking about AJ Styles. Undertaker started off Raw after they did a little package, going back and forth with what's been going on between AJ Styles and Undertaker. Well done package, but with AJ, he had like the last word last week, so they allowed the Undertaker to say what he wanted to say. I thought the interview, or not the interview, I thought the promo was great. I thought Undertaker was awesome. I love that it was like a little bit, he's going down the middle of the Dark Man and the American Badass. Like, I guess they're trying to represent what would be the closest to Mark, his actual identity, if you will. But, I mean, he even combined his phrases saying he was going to make him famous, which was his what the other styled, Dead Man Inc. version, and then told me he was going to rest in peace. So it was cool with that. I liked some of the statements that he said. I like him bringing out the people that he's beaten compared to AJ Styles and how he's basically a small fish in a big pond, if you will. The only thing that I will say is that if you want to bring Michelle into it, great. We all know that you didn't even believe that line about her having a better Styles clash than AJ Styles. I'm glad that you said that. I hope you get some points at home, Taker. But, give me a fucking break. I mean, just wanted to say that. I've only seen her do it a couple times, but I'm just saying, not trying to be a dick to the dead man because I don't want to get killed, but there's no fucking way possible that's true. Anyways, so like I said, good promo to start off things. I like this. I really do feel that, whatever the decision making was for this, it does. I'm getting more and more okay with it, Chris, because yeah, AJ can get a lot out of the Undertaker, and I feel like maybe this is Undertaker wanting to picking a couple last people to go against before his way out, and maybe AJ's someone. I haven't fought him. Undertaker's fought fucking everyone in wrestling, for Christ's sakes, for at least the time period that we watch wrestling. And, AJ's another person. I think they should have a good match. The Boneyard match is interesting concept. Like I said, buried alive, but with pirates or some shit. Maybe Johnny Depp will be there. I don't think that will happen. How'd you like this promo?
I thought it was a pretty good promo from old ass Undertaker. I don't like the blurring the line between the two. I think you're either one or the other. You're either the fucking undead or you're Badass Inc. So from that standpoint, I didn't like it necessarily. The Michelle McCool, that's laughable. Michelle McCool doing anything better than AJ Styles. If you're like AJ Styles, paint your toenails, I'm sure you would still do it better than Michelle McCool. I'm not even trying to be a dick. Like, AJ Styles is better in every way than Michelle McCool, outside of being the Undertaker's wife, which after WrestleMania, maybe those two will get married. No, all fucking around and joking aside, it was a decent promo. I don't like they brought Michelle McCool into it. Maybe they thought they had to because she did the Rumble spot for them, and I think maybe they're going to try to put her in the Hall of Fame next year, would be my guess. And the only thing I can think about is you remember that time that DDP stole Sarah or kidnapped Sarah? Sarah. What happened to Sarah? She buried? Dane, is Sarah buried? These are the hot takes that we need on this podcast.
Look, Christopher, if we're going to talk about that whole entire concept, how about we just say that, you have arguably, if we're going down this fucking route, because I'm still sore about the Sarah fucking angle with DDP, you have arguably one of the most popular people from that era, and they finally get Diamond Dallas Page. Hey, what should we do with them? Oh, let's have him stalk the Undertaker's wife. Fuck you to that person in creative, especially if it's Vince. Fuck you. And then what did he do? He became a motivational speaker. and then he kind of became a motivational speaker in real life. But I love DDP. What a waste. Probably the biggest waste, I would say, out of the WCW guys in fucking WWE.
I mean, out of the WCW guys, if you take away the people that were there, like Eddie and Jericho and obviously Ray and that gang that left before WCW ended, out of everyone that was there, is Booker T the only person that did anything?
Yep, I would say so, because Sting they couldn't get, Ric Flair they got, but I mean they've already had Ric Flair. Yeah, I would say that Booker T's the only one who pretty much advanced a bit, minus the ones they already had with Eddie and Chris and Jericho and shit. So Ray maybe, because Ray came in a little bit later. But even like NWO, all those guys were WWE guys beforehand. So yeah, I think you're right, Booker T.
And I have a question for the fans, maybe a fan poll. Maybe you guys can add us on Twitter on this one. Has Michelle McCool ever had a good match? I will wait, because I watched a lot of the Divas division, and I'm going to go ahead and say that that's some of the worst. Then the knockoff in TNA with Beautiful People was slightly better, but some of that stuff, that Mean Girl stuff with her and Mickie James and the shit they were doing back then was absolutely awful. I'm very thankful, not to call it a women's revolution, because I still think the tag division is in shambles and sometimes they take their eye off the ball. But what I will say is, like, fucking female wrestling is 1,000 times better than when Michelle McCool was there. And, like, having her pivot anything for your audience while talking about a focus on female wrestling is kind of absurd, outside of her being married to Undertaker.
Well, she is going to be mad at you for saying that, Chris, because she got mad when they had the little montage. I think it was like a fucking website article about women that inspired the revolution, and then she got Undertaker to tweet like, that he was like, it was disrespectful or whatever. So she disagrees with you. She created this fucking shit, man. She did it. We're talking too much shit about the Undertaker's wife, and we're gonna die. Do you realize that, right?
I mean, like, what? I'm just gonna get blocked by Taker on Twitter, which is ran by her, so it's fine. Not worried about it.
All right, well, we'll move on. The next thing they had a recap of the Ronda Rousey, Charlotte Flair, Becky Lynch match from last year at WrestleMania 35. I did actually end up watching it because I didn't have a lot to watch, and I will say that now watching this for a second time. Oh, is this the part where they had Becky come out at the beginning and she kind of like introduced it, and then at the end of it, yeah, okay, then Shayna Baszler. Yeah, that's right. So the match itself, I remember being a lot more down on it when I first watched it, and I hadn't watched it since last year. And I think that the main reason why I was down on it, besides the botched finish and a couple like parts that were a little bit awkward here and there, is I was so fucking tired, and this is the last match on that giant WrestleMania. So I actually liked it, this showing a bit more. When it was all over, Becky gave a damn good promo and then got attacked by Shayna Baszler, who attacked her from behind, choked her out, and posed with the Raw Women's Championship, and then threw it on top of Becky's face. Thought it was pretty good. Becky was pretty good on the mic. I know that there's not a lot. There's a lot of people that are not big Shayna fans. I've said a million times, I'm not one of them. I think she's pretty convincing. She's pretty intimidating. And I'm still looking forward to this match. Not so much compared to the other women's match with Charlotte and Rhea Ripley, but I'm still looking for this match somewhat. Chris, how did you even watch the match, rewatch it, or what did you do? Were you naked?
No, but I've rewatched the match multiple times. I mean, the one takeaway from that is it was a good idea to put Charlotte in there as filler for that match, especially if you were not going to have Ronda go over. The big takeaway from that match, as we talked about as soon as it happened, it was the finish was fucked. To the point where Ronda almost seemed like the finish was fucked, and then they gave us an angle where Ronda might come back, and then she left, and now she's on 911 on Fox or whatever. So maybe she'll come back to SmackDown. Who knows? I guess Ronda versus Bayley 2021.
Are you still into the Shayna Baszler Becky Lynch setup for WrestleMania?
They should have played out on Shayna being more of an attack character, and I guess I get why they didn't. Just because of everything that went on with her biting her neck and trying to basically kill her. I expected that was the Shayna we were going to get leading to Mania. Obviously, things changed. There's nothing they can do about that. I think they're going to have a good match. My problem is I feel like every time Becky is in a match with someone that can like shoot, so to speak, she wrestles a different style and goes away from kind of the normal Becky spots you want to see in a match. And also, I didn't like her character build up to the match itself. So it's probably going to be a wonky ass match. Whereas, like, if you have Shayna versus Bianca Belair, it's going to be a good match because they've worked together a lot. I could be wrong because they filmed this thing. So they could have fucking perfected it. It could be amazing. Who the hell knows? But in a live arena, if you were like, would you rather see Bianca Belair and Shayna Baszler, or Io Shirai and Shayna Baszler, or Asuka and Shayna Baszler? If you could have gave me a bunch of different options, same thing with Becky. You could throw her in with a bunch of other people. I would prefer that more. But the fact that Becky's primary move is a submission move versus like a straight UFC grappler whose whole gimmick has been about choking people out, breaking arms, and being a complete asshole. Same thing with Ronda without the buildup, and without it being Ronda, it is a little weird. But I'm looking forward to the match because I think if it's filmed right and done right, it could still be a really good match.
Yep, I agree. And from everything that Triple H was saying, he's making it sound it's what we're kind of expecting. I think it's going to be somewhat cinematic. The only thing I can like think of is with Baron Corbin, how he threw off Elias, something to that extent. But the filming will be differently. I know that they are going to be filming stuff live, and stuff will be at the Performance Center, but a lot of it will be pre-recorded stuff in different locations. So they're going to be trying some new stuff. It should be interesting. I'm not going to complain about the WrestleMania,
That's a little bit weird for me because I've heard that everything is done, like canned.
Oh, everything's done. Well, that's what Triple H said. He said that there's some stuff they are going to film live. You're right about that because we all heard originally. I think I have the quote right here. He said it's very innovative the way they're doing it this year, and that he thinks that will be. I mean, what the fuck do you expect him to say? But they also said they have a very unique way of removing Roman Reigns from this that we'll see this Sunday. This just happened today. And
should I go into the suspect manner of how they're trying to take money from people right now?
Yeah, you can actually go. You can go into that a bit. I have no problem with that.
All right, so they're going to show this pay-per-view. It's a 2-day pay-per-view. You can buy both days. They're $30 a piece, so $60 for all of WrestleMania, unless you're a WWE Network subscriber, in which you get it for $9 like normal, which is fine. We kind of knew this was going to happen. The problem is they haven't even announced what fucking matches are on what fucking days. We're sitting here looking at Mania being a week away, essentially. They're putting this on the Fox app and the Fight Network app for $30 a day, and they're going to toss in some random stuff. I guess it's going to be an all-day occurrence, but it's just a money grab and a time that a money grab doesn't seem appropriate at fucking all. If I'm being honest, people are losing their jobs. It's just a time to dial it back and give them the $9.99 or even offer a free fucking trial. It's just one of those WWE money grab bullshit things that I hate. I was completely fine with it. If we go back, I don't know, like 8 or 10 podcasts ago when we were talking about this originally, it's like, well, if they're just trying to get a casual fan for a pay-per-view buy or whatever, sure. But it's a different, the times are different, and the fact that they're not promoting that you can get this for $9.99 on the WWE Network, and they're really pushing the Fox app to the point where if you search WWE WrestleMania right now, it's going to show a bunch of Fox shit because it's Fox. So if you're just a casual ass fan, you may think that's the way you need to pay for it and watch it, which is just, to me, is just very gross. It's just gross to even talk about. Like, I know you're trying to recoup money and shit, but I don't think this is necessarily the way to do it. Really left a fucking bad taste in my mouth, dude, leading into this podcast.
So let me get this straight. You're annoyed that they're not advertising so much to the public, people that don't, aren't like us, that don't watch wrestling all the time, that are probably looking for stuff to watch. The fact that you can get the network for $9.99 and be able to watch it, as opposed to having to spend money on these cable programming to be able to, or not cable programming, but ESPN's app or whatnot, or if it's Fox's app or whatever, to be able to watch these, and how much of a money difference it is than if they were to advertise to the public that if they could do their network, it's $9.99 and they get both pay-per-views.
Yeah, I mean, it should be the same across the board. If you're going to do it, it should be the same across the board for everyone involved. This is like if I go to Midas and it's $15 to get an oil change, and I go down the street and it's $30 to get a fucking oil change. I don't need this in wrestling, and I think it's very bad timing and a very poor decision that they're going to get buried on. They already have on Wrestling Observer and a few other places. Also, the fact that you're selling this thing already and you don't have matches predated to what fucking night they're going to go on or the show edited together is kind of just, to me, it's a very scummy feel to it. That, I mean, I don't know what I'm expecting. This is a company that does a bunch of Saudi Arabia shows and leaves a wrestler stranded for fucking 6 days, not to shoot on WWE, but it's pretty fucking awful. I'll say that.
Yeah, it definitely is not the nicest thing to do for your fan base, but exploiting people that just don't know, this is something I could completely see WWE doing. If they're including extra stuff, I mean, that's great. But once again, if you get the network, you get all that stuff and then much more. So, yeah, it's probably something where they should be just being more honest about it. And I'm sure, I would hope at least, they're displaying on Fox and on ESPN when they're showing these past WrestleManias and all these other deals that they're doing, that, there is the option of the network. Because I would think you'd want to advertise your network as well, but they could be just going for that money. They were going to do something similar to this anyways and possibly take us off of it. I guess they felt bad for the people that actually do the network, because there's a possibility, Chris, that me or you would have to fucking do this if that whole entire thing with ESPN, stuck around and everything was normal before this whole coronavirus happened,
Yeah, I mean, if you would have got a monthly subscription bump from like 9 to 15 or something, it wouldn't have been as much as a pocket hit as your casual fans or whatever. But if this is the way to draw in your Fox audience, I think it's just in poor taste. And I watched some of the stuff on ESPN 2 weeks ago when they were showing what is the John Cena WrestleMania? I'm trying to think of the 32 or 30. I'm trying to remember. I didn't see any advertisements about the WWE Network at all.
Yep.
It's a little strange to me.
I don't think it's strange. I expect shit like that.
So don't. You feel like someone there would have enough social sense to know like if you get 2,000 buys at $30 a piece for Saturday show, fuck, it's not worth the bad publicity of having shows at different prices when you're a company as big as WWE. It's just stupid. Like, it's not even, it's stupid beyond the level of stupid. It's just bad business. That's what it is.
Yeah, I agree. So anyways, going back to what I was saying about Triple H, he basically said they're going to be doing different segments. They're not all going to be in the Performance Center, so I was wrong. I don't think anything's going to be live per se, but he just said it was very unique the way that they did it, and so obviously he's not going to say this is going to be terrible, but it's going to be interesting the way that they film it. It's going to be a very different take on it, and just Strange about it. What are you going to do? So let's talk about, let's keep on moving with Raw. And we had just a match for a newcomer, Jason Cade, take advantage of some airtime and go out and get Black Mass really quickly by Aleister Black. Black is supposed to be going against Bobby Lashley. Originally reported he was on the injury or person that was sent home list. So now I'm kind of confused on what exactly is going to happen. But maybe that initial report was incorrect. I'm not 100% sure. This is the question that we've had. This is kind of the last straw. If they kind of pretend like, oh, Bobby got attacked backstage, who's going to go against Aleister? And they present someone that way, Chris, on Mania. Who do you have go against Aleister?
Fuck if I know, dude. Who do you have? Let me go with you first, and then maybe
Buddy Murphy. Just to have him have a banger.
Yeah, I think me and you both are stuck on the Buddy Murphy idea on this one.
There's not a lot of choices. My two choices are I said him and Buddy Murphy, let him have a fun match and go at it. Or don't have Aleister Black a part of the match. Have him come out because you saw Undertaker say, bring Gallows and Anderson, those dipshits or whatever the fuck he called them. Have them getting the better of Undertaker, and Aleister makes a save just like Undertaker did to him to help him get his win, and there you go. There's nothing else needed with him. You can just use him as a person in that, but they probably didn't do that.
Yeah, damn, son, I'm just gonna have to agree with you on this one. I mean, Buddy Murphy is probably the perfect match, unless they're gonna bring someone up.
Velveteen
versus Aleister.
I would love that. That was one of my favorite feuds.
It's a good feud. But I mean, yeah, I don't know. Buddy Murphy makes the most sense.
Well, speaking about people that kind of took advantage of this, that I was very happy to be involved in not only WrestleMania, but in a lot of the shows lately, and that is Austin Theory, because we found out that Kevin Owens is going against Street Profits. At the beginning of the match, Selena basically let us know that Andrade was out with a rib injury, which is legitimate. And so Angel Garza would be with Austin Theory. And it kind of looks like they're giving Selena her own, if they keep this going past everything, her own, her own faction. So she has Austin Theory, Angel Garza, and the U.S. champion Andrade Cien Almas. But they teamed up with Seth Rollins. It's a pretty good match, back and forth. They showed before this Seth Rollins, just destroying KO with his promo the week previous. At the end of this match, Owens got the win, but Rollins came after and gave him the stomp to the head and left the ring. And Owens, kind of lit up Rollins' ass about just the fact that, he basically thinks that he started NXT and everything is him, and apparently like a lot of this happened because of the fact that without him, if you will, and that he was a prima donna, just like little things that kind of just amplify this. And I am looking forward to these two guys kicking the shit out of each other. I think that's going to be a lot of fun, and pretty good match, fun stuff. Happy to see Austin Theory in a big role. That tag match with the Street Profits and the two of them should be awesome. Angel's another guy that I think is the future. Said that a million times. I like that Selena's got like a little bit of faction going on, even if it's accidentally. And I am more excited about Owens going against Rollins. I think that's going to be a fun match. I like that they're taking cuts about their performance record, if you will, within WrestleMania. And now Owens, I think he's even fueled more so to kick the shit out of Seth, and I hope he gets the win, which is exactly what it was supposed to do. How did you like it, Chris?
Yeah, same. I thought it was a very good promo by Kevin Owens, and builds obviously to the match, and hopefully they give them enough time, and maybe they don't edit it too much. Just have those two guys have a great ass match, and I'm sure they can pull it off, even in an empty arena. If anyone can pull it off, it'd be those two. I think it'd be great. all of that being said, the Austin Theory thing, I'm still on the fence about, just because Andrade's going to come back, and they love Andrade, so I don't know where that leaves Theory. And now he's pushed to the main roster without ever getting a shot on NXT.
Yeah.
Hopefully, it's the opposite, where they just see a lot in Austin Theory, which I think a lot of wrestling fans see, and they're like, that's actually the guy that's going to come out heads up on this. We'll see. That's a time can tell. I mean, Austin Theory could just drop back down after coronavirus. Who knows?
I think Angel might too, because he was in NXT before they just pulled him up randomly when Andrade got hurt. There's definitely a possibility about that.
Yeah, and I'm wondering if it's location to the building, etc., that has something to do with that. As far as Austin Theory being there, it's just weird they pulled him up so quickly. But I mean, like him stealing Selena Vega and then having some kind of feud between the three of them and giving us those matches, that could be really fucking good because they're all great. Like Andrade's really good in the ring. Angel Garza is a up and coming superstar, and fucking everyone knows how we've gushed about Austin Theory and how good this fucking guy could be. So if they give us that could be really, really entertaining, and maybe even fodder for Aleister Black if they decide to pull the trigger on that.
God, I want to see Andrade and Aleister Black in a feud. They had such great matches in NXT, or any of them for that matter, but definitely between the two of them. All right, so Edge talked about how Randy Orton has been coasting his entire career, basically just saying, like, you know, it's like to the level of that you're okay with is better than most, but it's okay for you to just stay at that level, to never try to get higher. You act like grit is getting chosen by Revolution and being pushed to the top by the people that you were with. You were completely content on just living off your family name. A lot of the stuff that he has been saying, but Edge, just his acting performance, and when he said, but, you know, when you brought my wife into this, when you said my daughter's names, you know, that changed things. And he's coming for Randy Orton, and I think that he's insinuating that he wants to destroy his career. So this is going to be the way they set up this match is awesome, and I'm really looking forward to it. I thought it was another great promo on Monday Night Raw.
Same. Does this have a little bit of the Tommaso Ciampa Gargano feel to it?
Yeah,
to you?
Absolutely.
And by me saying that's like nothing negative, I think that's actually a good thing. I mean, great promo by Edge. I think he's been good since coming back, and I'm really looking. I mean, this is probably the match I'm looking forward to the most. And if he punts Randy Orton at the end of it, because they can fake it, being that it's pre-recorded, he gives him the punt, and then Orton comes back 3 months later or whatever. I'm down for that rematch.
Yep. I know they could have a trilogy really in front of them, especially based on both their lax schedules. All right, so we had Asuka going against Kaden Carter. This was just to build Asuka up more so. But I will say, just like when she was in the Gauntlet match on NXT, I really like Kaden Carter. I see a lot of potential in her, and I want her to stick around. She's definitely someone that's in the NXT realm of female performers that's not at that top echelon, but it's like you can tell that, you know, just because how deep that roster is, she can be someone, you know, quite soon within it. Remember, we have Ember Moon still coming back at some point. She's almost done with her injury. That's another person that's going to be fun to get into the women's division on Raw or SmackDown. Love to see her back in NXT, but that's not going to happen. I don't think they have room for her. Anyways, how'd you like this match?
Thought it was a decent performance overall. Nothing groundbreaking, but solid match. Kind of fit a need. When you talk about Ember Moon, her career is so up in the air to me because I wonder if Vince now sees her as injury prone, and that always makes me a bit worried. Whereas in NXT, it seems like they kind of stick with people versus main roster. If you catch a couple of injuries, it's almost a little bit game over, especially right after you come up.
You know, I would actually hope that Booker T would just tell her to, like, talk Triple H, go back to NXT, because she's another person that definitely can benefit from not having to be on the main roster and still being an attraction in NXT. But then again, like we said, that women's division's so deep, and when we go over NXT next, we'll get into that. Anyways, we have footage. Charlotte Flair attacking Rhea Ripley at the beginning of the day, slamming her into a garage door-like thing. It wasn't a garage door. It was like one of those ones for warehouses. Doesn't matter. When Ripley arrived at the building, and then they showed the Brock Lesnar Rey Mysterio match from the Survivor Series, which was a good match, I will say. Last thing that happened, Paul Heyman talked about Brock Lesnar and how he's going to run WrestleMania and said that Brock's going to be in the go-home segment of the go-home Raw before next year's WrestleMania, just gloating about the fact that he's the biggest person. Basically, he's the most important thing for this whole entire show for Raw. And, lists all of his accomplishments, mixed in UFC legends within there of people that he's beaten. And it's really impressive when you really think about it, listing things that they've overcome from all those wrestlers and MMA fighters, and just builds Brock to being this force when it comes to combat sports. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. It doesn't matter if it's pro wrestling, just straight wrestling or MMA. It's like he is someone that's kind of he's a threat. He is a threat, and we'll have to wait to see if Drew McIntyre can take him. I hope he can, due to what's going on. I don't know what the hell they're going to do, but we'll go over that type of stuff Saturday when we go over the WrestleMania card for Saturday and Sunday. Chris, how did you like the last couple segments? We had Charlotte attacking Rhea Ripley. Then they showed Brock Lesnar and Rey Mysterio at Survivor Series. And I also, by the way, I don't think I said this. I love that Rey did a Joker costume for that, because only Joker's crazy ass would get in the fucking ring with Brock Lesnar. I thought that was actually pretty fitting. but anyways, and then Paul Heyman's speech, revving up Brock Lesnar for Drew McIntyre this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, the Ray Brock match I think is very underrated. We both kind of gushed over what they were able to accomplish. And as the years have passed, I've become more of a Brock mark, as everyone that listens to this show knows. I think he does really, really well if you put him against people he actually respects and give him enough time to do what he wants to do. Paul's promo was Paul's promo. I mean, it's just more of the same. He did not promise this time that Brock was, as far as I remember, I don't remember. There's some golden word that Paul says when he knows Brock is going to win. And he didn't necessarily hit said word. I'll have to go back and rewatch the promo again to see it. So my guess is McIntyre, kills Brock.
Did he not say it was a spoiler? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I don't think that's what it was, a spoiler, right? And then they kind of teased it at Mania and made it a thing, but then they're going to try to bring it back. So, man, McIntyre has to go over. So I'm assuming McIntyre wins and then sets up a feud down the road, maybe SummerSlam. If you want to put the title back on Brock, you can. I don't think he needs it. Drew definitely needs some strong wins. So 2 wins in a row by Drew would be smart by that company. And the Charlotte Flair angle, it was just a random attack angle. It was fine. I'm still looking forward to that match. I think it's going to be very, very good. Rhea Ripley, Charlotte Flair should be entertaining as hell. The only weird part of that is the fact that it's more of the NXT side, right? So the contenders for the NXT title are kind of just in limbo at the moment.
And for some reason, I know a lot of these things have to do with not being able to fly people from certain locations. That's the reason why, and also obviously I think they're probably worried about his age, but why Jim Ross isn't able to make these. He was talking about an interview, and I've heard a lot of other people with that. But I actually forgot the direction of where I was going with that.
Probably like Bianca Belair being able to actually fly down to Tampa or
Bianca
whatever.
Belair has been gone. She wasn't a part of the the tournament to get to number 1, whoever wins against Charlotte and Rhea Ripley. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And that's because at first I was like, where is she? I thought maybe she lived in Florida, and I know that obviously Montez Ford, her husband's there. So, I'm just hoping everything's fine with Bianca and that the main reason is she can't get over location-wise, or because she has some type of immune situation due to whatever, or she just opted out. Just said, I'm trying to stay away from it. It would seem like she is next in line, basically, between whoever wins Rhea Ripley and Charlotte. That's how they kind of made it look, you know?
Yeah, that, and it's also kind of the perfect excuse to get out of a situation you didn't want to be in, which is me and you talking about like a three-way match or whatever. So if you just completely avoid her on TV amidst everything that's going on in the rest of the world, it makes sense because you can kind of draw your own conclusions on why that performer is not there. So to me, it's almost a bailout for WWE to some extent. Hopefully everything is okay with her. And that she's not sick or anything. Like, I'm not wishing any sickness on Bianca Belair by any means. I'm just saying, as a booker, this is a bailout for the scenario that they put themselves in. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Just thought that was interesting. Someone brought her up, and I was like, oh, yeah, where has she been? Either way, let's start with NXT. NXT started off with a match that they've been promoting for, I think, the last 2 weeks. Velveteen Dream is on his road of beating, I guess, every member of Undisputed Era before he gets title shot with Adam Cole. As kind of stated, a lot of the stuff that you're seeing on these NXTs going forward, they're basically the matches that were going to be on TakeOver for this week for WrestleMania, which makes me think, if you really wanted to still amp it up, I don't know how it works, or, because how many people that you can have there, it's a lot of sketchy stuff. The reason why we had AEW moving from Jacksonville to actually Norcross, which is where I work over at Cody's gym, him and QT Marshall's gym, to wrestle at there, is because the amount of people, you can get away with a little bit more. Not saying that you should probably do that, but that was the reasoning behind it. And I know that Florida is now becoming a lot more strict about in that type of situation. So just interesting that it seems like they've basically have recorded a certain amount and then they're taking a pause. That's what it really seems like with WWE. They're realizing that after WrestleMania, after their stuff that they have recorded for the next couple weeks out, they might be reevaluating things, which is probably smart. But yeah, I thought NXT was a good show. I thought that I like that they're listening and recording forward at the entrance and not showing the audience. I still feel like, I understand it's a smaller location, even to the one that they were at tonight with AEW. Just a couple people in the audience would be good, but then again, I think they are still in Florida, so maybe there are stricter things for them. It's a smaller location. I get it. I am somewhat getting used to it. It's just still weird not having the audience there to add that element that's definitely missing, because in between this, I'm watching other wrestling from back in the day, and it's very, very strange. But I have gotten somewhat more used to it. AEW, I like the location. I think, though, I guess that they're taking advantage of what they can. I just know that there is a lot of outlets, I'll just lay it like this, and not say anyone in particular, that have been pretty down on WWE, and understandably UFC, especially Dana White, kind of being a douche ass and saying that he doesn't care about what the media thinks. And basically, if you want to go see that, I think we kind of brought that up last time. It's about cutting weight and how that can, down your immune system, and the safety risks in that. And he kind of had a little mental breakdown, but I think that kind of happens, and there's a lot of crazy shit happening. But AEW, there are a lot of people that are kind of close in their proximity. With when they were in Jacksonville, the first time they had them kind of close to each other. They had them near the cameraman on both sides, heels on one side, baby faces on the other, and it looked like there was more people than there really were. Then they got kind of yelled at. That's when, coincidentally, Jim Ross was taken out of it, and they decided to put him in a room and videotape him there, like that would be the smarter thing to do. And now, obviously, they tried it their way on AEW. It just seems like, if I'm going to be honest with you, like, no one seems to give a shit about them doing it. but that's how the wrestling world is. So, not trying to throw shade. I just find it funny a lot of times how that doesn't get brought up. Actually, I heard from some of the people I'm referring to that was really great how they did all that and how it caused so much sound, and I don't know. And then WWE's just not being careful enough, and they're fucking up here and there, and it's just weird. I don't know where I came from that tangent, but I liked NXT. I thought it was a really good show and a lot of good wrestling. Why don't you just interrupt me? Just shoot a gun or something, man. Jesus Christ.
Because I was letting you finish, man. Obviously AEW was filmed here in Atlanta, or Norcross, as you say, home of the Varsity Junior. Get off on Jimmy Carter. Get off on Jimmy Carter. You hit some Varsity Junior. Have diarrhea later, just like the good Lord intended. Nah, all that shit aside, I like the crowd thing. I can't go back on that because I said WWE should totally do that. They should have heels and faces on separate sides. When we first talked about this shit happening in WWE recording the show, I was like, this is how you get around that, because if the athletes are going to have to be there anyways, then they're going to have to be there anyways. And WWE, I'm sure, is still calling more performers than they actually need in case someone gets hurt, etc. It's weird because of the Florida shutdown that they had last weekend. I'm sure that affected things. I do know that AEW has recorded a ton of stuff. I did hear that today. I know that WWE, I think they're good until the Wednesday after Mania right now. So NXT is recorded
I believe so.
The Wednesday after Mania. So they're pretty much set in stone as well. I would expect AEW to do the same. Luckily for AEW is they have someone like, Matt Hardy and Chris Jericho who can just do crazy shit for 45 minutes and then commercial break.
Oh my God.
So there's that.
So funny.
But NXT was really solid this week. It's still weird. I mean, I don't think we're going to get over that. Mania is going to be much of the same as far as how they're trying to put the matches and stuff. There's still going to be some weird times in Mania, and I think maybe we just have to look past it. I guess the biggest thing for me is when I think empty arena, I think of a big conclusion match that can only be solved without harm to fans. An empty arena, and seeing empty arenas, I'm just like, it makes me sad. Makes me want to just watch, Terry Funk versus Jerry Lawler. Like, Jerry Lawler took Terry Funk's eye. It's a fucking real reason to fight him.
Lawler, you stupid bastard.
Took my eye, you son of a bitch.
You son of a bitch.
But I think that's probably more me than other people. I do know that ratings were down for both shows, so whatever is happening.
I'm not even looking at ratings, man. It's kind of like right now with everything going on, it's like, what the fuck? I mean, I understand, I guess, newer things should have more, eyeballs on it, or stuff that's left, if you will, that's a live thing, like a wrestling show. But, I mean, I don't know. It looks awkward, especially, I will say, the thing is, I mean, if they decide to go to Connecticut and do it over in their warehouse area, that's I would assume they have a ring over there. That's the only other fucking place that they could record at. But the Performance Center looks kind of like you would have a giant 4-screen television, and it's like an ultimate movie theater that some rich rapper would have in their fucking basement or something, with really nice chairs.
I mean, I think AEW does a better job at this as far as zooming in the empty arena scenario. If they just looked at what NWA does on their weekly YouTube show and maybe dial back the production a little bit, they're going to get a way better output. It's going to look more classic. It's going to look more like old school WrestleMania, but it is going to give you a better feel for the overall show, I think. And WWE is never going to pull the trigger on that. So I'm just fucking talking to the wind right now. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. I mean, Georgia shut down, so AEW, the home of the gyms they have, I don't know if they're going to try to do it live, what they have filmed. I don't know. Maybe they buy the rights for just how crazy Broken Matt Hardy is and show that all next week. That'd be great. Like, just all of the
just do a television show, man.
Of Broken Matt Hardy. Show. I mean, that's the thing is they have characters they can pivot around, whereas NXT has straight badasses, but they don't really have characters. They have great matches, but outside of Velveteen Dream, they don't really have a character to hang on to. They have this is a badass wrestling faction. These are fucking elite wrestlers right here. But AEW, they kind of filled that little middle gap of like, yeah, we're going to give you the good wrestling shit you guys like, but also here's all the crazy weird shit that's going on.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
I think that's their primary advantage in this whole scenario.
I just think that closing statement, when you compare to whatever WWE's doing, either with NXT, Raw, SmackDown, it seems like, you know, and some of it duly noted, they have listed what they have done to make sure, you know, their performers are up to date and stuff like that, and they've sent people home, obviously, but they're getting chastised a lot for not being smart with this whole entire situation and videotaping. But I feel like AEW, who kind of pushes the limit a bit, kind of gets a slap on the wrist, you know, compared to WWE or UFC, even though I think UFC is definitely a lot more understandable why people will be pissed off with that situation. That's all.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that, but both those companies are way bigger than AEW. You know,
yeah,
you have a following of like 4 million people watching you a week versus, you know, 800,000 to 900,000.
Yeah, that's true.
So that goes a long way. I mean, if the NHL tried to do this shit or the NBA tried to do this shit right now, they'd get immediately buried. You know what I mean? So WWE's kind of in the weird wheelhouse, and unfortunately for UFC and Dana White, who looked like he was about to have a fucking aneurysm after that empty arena fight, they're in a different scenario, and they're more in the public eye. I mean, WWE, when people think of wrestling, they're always going to think of Vince. That's the first thing. It doesn't matter if some stupid shit happens at an indie show. When you look up wrestling, while it's great to be on top, you're also the first target, right? So a little bit of that. But as far as fan base, just kind of being like, I love this. I do love it. I think it is great that they have heels in the crowd. But I get the other side of it. It's also kind of dangerous, right? But so is having wrestling in general. Right.
Yep.
So, you know, like, you don't know. Like, maybe fucking Carl Anderson went out to buy groceries and
with his hot Asian wife
and didn't take enough precautions, and now Gallows is sick and fucking AJ Styles is sick, and they got to go wrestle the Undertaker, who's 175 years old. I mean, all of it is a risky situation. I mean, there's a reason why Georgia's like, no one go anywhere ever except for the grocery store. Like, there's a reason why states are doing that, whether you agree with it or not.
Yep, I agree. All right, well, let's move on to the actual NXT show. We had a match kick it off with Velveteen Dream and Bobby Fish. This is the best I've seen of Velveteen Dream since he came back. I will say that. They had a pretty hard-hitting match. Velveteen Dream's selling is a bit more awkward with no audience there. He seems like he's about to cry or some shit like that. It was weird. I noticed that. But anyways, it was a good back and forth match. I really liked one part. Dream does have a lot of macho manisms, definitely to him. That's why he does the double axe handle and the elbow drop. But he was about to do the elbow drop. Bobby Fish rolled out to the outside. He just turned himself and did the double axe handle to the outside, which I've seen Savage do a million fucking times. So that's always going to make me pop. And ended with the Dream Valley Driver. After the match, Dream cut a promo on Adam Cole and the rest of the Undisputed Era. I guess this means he's going to be going against Kyle O'Reilly, probably beating him to inevitably go against Adam Cole for the NXT World Heavyweight Championship. Unless I just don't remember him going against Kyle O'Reilly. I know he has a win over Roderick Strong and Bobby Fish.
I think he has a win over the entire group. If you include tag matches and stuff, I'm pretty sure he is. It doesn't really matter because they don't give a fuck about history anyways, to some extent. I thought this was a very good match. I liked Velveteen Dream. I think this was, as you said, his strongest showing since coming back. definitely the Macho Man-isms. To put it in perspective, it's like watching a Shawn match on mute a little bit, or Macho Man match on mute, or Rock and Roll Express match on mute, and just ignoring that the crowd's even there. It is kind of a weird feeling, but I thought it was a very good match. Kind of showed that Velveteen can get back to where he was, which is promising considering what they had him doing going into this feud, I guess, with the pants and the is he a heel thing. He's clawing his way back out of being booked very badly. Like, to me, the whole pants airbrush gimmick was very heelish, and then the crowd not being there. He's had a lot of obstacles to overcome. They should have just had him debut at Mania and had a really strong showing or some shit instead of what they tried to do, in all honesty. Not Mania, Rumble. Sorry, apologize. Dan, you're on mute, bud.
Hi, how's it going? I was on. I did not know that. I was gonna say, he when he came back, it just kind of sucks the time period in which he came back. It's just very unfortunate because now with this of there being no audience and him not having those people to feed off of, I will say I still think big things for him. I'll go by like Matt Morgan on the review that listened from Wrestling Inc. said that in 2 years he could see him, main eventing against The Rock or John Cena at WrestleMania. Like, that's how much he sees the potential of him of being a wrestling superstar, a great wrestling in-ring entertainer. So,
damn,
and
that shows you a lot about how Matt Morgan feels about the rest of the roster. He's like, if he goes against Cena or The Rock, it'll be a huge deal.
Yeah,
Thanks, Blueprint. Thanks, Blueprint. Yeah, I mean, he deservedly got some hate coming back though, because there is no excuse for that clusterfuck we saw on his debut. To be honest, like, it looked really, really bad.
Yep. All right, so let's move on. Malcolm Blevins cut a promo introducing the Bivens Enterprise tag team. Saurav Gurja and Rinku Singh, and just said they're going to beat people's asses. I like him. He comes off as an old school 80s manager, and I kind of dig that. And it seems like they're I think his name's Robbie. I think I always fuck it up, but how they're using him as a manager with him. Selena, I like seeing managers actually come back, and these guys look like a modern day like Powers of Pain type of concept. So cool. I'm interested. We'll see what happens. I just don't want them to just take the titles off of the Broserweights automatically. I think that would be kind of boring. Do something with them. Make us invested in them as villains, much like you did with AOP. How do you like this little promo, Chris?
I feel exactly the same way as you did. I thought it was a good callback to old school managers. I also like Robbie. I don't feel like they're really invested in Robbie being a manager, unfortunately. Chelsea Green's not really done a whole lot of anything that's been impressive, to say the least, and that's who he's managing. All that being said, I agree with you. You can't take, to me, your Broserweights are your biggest draw right now, maybe outside of Keith Lee. So pulling the title off either of those people right now, it's a bad idea. You got to make us want it. You want to see Pete Dunne finally have enough of Matt Riddle. Matt Riddle be the babyface in distress, so to speak, or at least I do.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I would like to see them stay together and kind of build some stuff first before we do anything else. All right, so next we got a match with Dexter Lumis and this is the second time he's been on NXT. It was a couple of months ago. I don't know if he had an injury or something, but he was out for a while and had a match against newcomer talent Jake Atlas, and pretty good match. I dig weirdos. I know that's just like, I guess, my thing with wrestling, but I really dig guys that seem like they're mentally crazy. The only one I didn't really like was Ultimate Warrior back in the day, but for the most part, if you kind of act crazy, it goes on. More so the legit fighter guys that I always liked, like Benoit and Bret Hart, or the aerial guys that I always liked. If you just acted crazy or you had some darkness to you, I thought you were really cool. And Dexter Lumis definitely has that type of darkness to him. But I don't know. I ended up reading an article about how he created this character, and even though I could kind of tell, he kind of had a lot of influence of studying a lot of Jake the Snake Roberts and how he would do things in the ring, and I kind of get that feel. But the eyes, very different form of Psycho. So you have like the crazy eyes that Mick Foley used to do as Cactus Jack, the early days, where it was like he was smiling mad, but he was soulless almost, and Luke Harper or Brody Lee kind of has that type of look. The darkness of the eyes, too, have something to do with it. Then you have someone like a Psycho Sid who has that craziness to him, or Brian Pillman. There's just different levels. Edge has had that before. This is a different, weird, like, I feel like he kind of wants to eat the humans. And I don't know. I'm down with it. I know that a lot of people aren't into Loomis, but I get what they're going for because it's Dexter Morgan versus Dr. Loomis from Halloween. And I like this. If he wants to kind of have some type of serial killer type of character, I'm kind of down. I didn't think the match was that great, but it was very methodical, slow pace, something I would see out of this. I enjoyed it. He's someone I'm going to be watching more, I guess. How'd you like it, Chris?
I liked it. I'm not sure on the name. It's one of those names I don't think is ever going to get over. Even though I love both of those things. I love Dexter and I love Loomis. It's just people are automatically going to associate that with things that are bigger than you.
Yep, so that's true.
It's just a bad choice. Like,
do you think that he should have stayed as Samuel Shaw? Do you think that would have been a better name?
Well, it's WWE, so they would have just shortened it to Shaw. But sure.
So basically, he's going to be Dexter in a couple of months, regardless. He's not going to even have the Loomis part.
I mean, maybe. I don't know. It's just those two names are so on the button, in the fact that there's a new fucking Halloween movie coming out right after that last one came out, that you're going to try to throw that in there now. And also, he doesn't come off as a Loomis unless he's going to be a psychologist who's trying to prevent a monster from killing people. It's just two random names thrown together from things people like. I get it. I'm just surprised that no one else in the writing room was like, really? Like, that's not, I don't know. Maybe that's just me. But as far as the promo work and everything, I think he's a good package. And what you were saying about the crazy eyes, I think the person that nails Jake the Snake the closest, and I really hate to say this, is probably Randy Orton. And I'm not even a huge Orton fan, but he's probably the closest that looks as demented as Jake could look when Jake really turned it on.
Yeah, I agree with that. Those crazy eyes. Crazy eyes. It's kind of like Hunger Eyes, All right, anyways. Let's move on to a vignette of another Psycho coming there, more like I say on like the Psycho Sid style, and that is Killer Cross, which the whole thing was narrated with his wife, Scarlett Bardot, and just creepy images, a lot of stuff like Rob Zombie style things, and it's kind of cool with her. I wonder if they're gonna play off like she's like a Sherry Moon Zombie character as his valet, and just really double down on him just being this sick, crazy fuck. And it's all about the clock, tick tock, tick tock. I don't know if they're making him drop that part, but they're still the clock element. I'm starting to think that's the reason why you don't hear him say like he usually does TikTok because of the whole boogeyman thing. But you know, he is a tall man, and once it's ready, he ends you and he takes you back to the underworld basically. And I'm looking forward to Killer Cross. I don't know when they're going to throw him in. Do you think they're going to keep him and Loomis like very far away from each other?
I mean, if they're smart, they'll keep them all very far away from each other because they have lots of mystical creatures. You have the Demon, you have Bray Wyatt, you have Killer Cross, you have Loomis, Alistair, etc. And the way to get one of those over is to only have one of those. To have too many of those will not work. The only time it's ever worked is when Kane was Undertaker's brother.
Yep.
I mean, and I guess Papa Shango versus Ultimate Warrior, but Ultimate Warrior was kind of the ultimate babyface good guy, more so than a crazy person. We just look back at his promos like he was a fucking crazy person.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I don't know. It's weird. I like Killer Cross a lot. I like your idea of the kind of the Rob Zombie feel, but the problem is they're already doing that on AEW with Jake the Snake.
Oh yeah, they are kind of doing that with Jake.
I mean, they're pretty much giving us a PG-13 version of House of a Thousand Corpses with him just murdering people in the woods. And I talked about that on the last few podcasts. That's definitely kind of the gimmick they're trying to go for. Is this man is crazy? Maybe say like Otis, for instance, and Jake the Snake is more of the Spalding the Clown character.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. Well, it'll be interesting. Whatever, the vignettes themselves, I thought have been really cool, but that is true that that's kind of similar in nature. But then again, man, Jake the Snake Roberts, I love. Well, we'll get there. We'll get to his little vignette. So they had highlights from the Johnny Gargano Tommaso Ciampa brawl throughout the Performance Center. That building up hype for that, and then we had the gauntlet match. So we basically had Deonna Purrazzo and Shotzi Blackheart start off the match. Deonna lost. Xia Li came out. Shotzi made her tap out. Aaliyah came out, made her tap out, and then Kaden Carter had a little more offense back and forth for a little while, and then she made her tap out, or maybe she actually pinned her. And then Dakota Kai came out with Raquel Gonzalez, who definitely tried to get involved. But at the end of it, got the go-to kick from Dakota Kai, and Shotzi lost. I thought this was a really good match. I feel bad for Aaliyah and all that. I always feel bad for Aaliyah, man. She just kind of gets like, whatever. Anyways, but Kaden Carter looked really good. Like I said before on Raw, I think she's gotten good exposure. I think I see a lot of potential, and I realized why she was the last person before Dakota Kai. Kai made sense to win, and Shotzi looks like the badass for being the person that could last the whole entire thing, dominating most of the time. So I thought this was actually a pretty good structured match. They do want to have some of that Tegan Nox versus Dakota Kai stuff, probably to take them out of the match and from not winning it when they have the ladder match is what I would assume. Chris, how'd you like the gauntlet match with the ladies?
I have came to hate gauntlet matches, Dane.
Wow. They kind of do get boring.
Yeah, maybe just a lot of them. I like Shotzi Blackheart's character a lot. I think there's a lot that they can do with her. I am confusing the wrestler she was working with. Was it Catanzaro? That's what I like.
Deonna Purrazzo?
Yes, I am confusing. Okay, I confused those two. I was like, didn't she quit? No. Okay, that makes more sense now. I was like, I don't think that's the person. That was a me head thing. I thought the match was pretty decent. I mean, I don't know. Dakota Kai, I guess, is the one that would come out shining out of this, unless you want to go the Shotzi Blackheart route. I think that she's very individual and looks a lot different than the rest of the roster, almost to a Paige feel, like I said in the past, like a little bit of a tank girl kind of thing going. Like from the movie, not necessarily the comic book, but I think that's what they're going for with her character, and I like her a lot. So I don't have high opinions on this. I may need to rewatch this match, honestly, Dane, to give it further credibility. But I like Dakota Kai, and I definitely like what they've been doing with Shotzi, the mini tank and stuff. I think is a good character move. She went the total Scott Hall Sting route of like, hey, just pick a movie character and then do that, and that'll be cool.
Yep. I'm still waiting for someone to play Chunk from Goonies. I think that would be an awesome gimmick. Maybe.
Well, just wait till Braun gets thrown off a. Wait till Braun gets thrown off a fucking ledge by Baron Corbin and he'll come back as Chunk. I'm sure WWE's got you.
All right. Well, I'm hoping for it. All right. So a recap of the feud between Charlotte Flair and Ripley played. Then we had a match with Kushida and Joaquin Wilde. And it was actually pretty good. It was a really good cruiserweight match. What do you expect? You have Kushida and you have DJZ. And Kushida won with an armbar. Kushida and Wilde shook hands after the match. And then they were in the parking lot, and someone kidnapped Wilde, and no one did anything. And the announcers weren't even responding to it. I know one of them was Sam Roberts, which is weird to have him as the heel manager or the heel announcer on there with Todd Phillips. But it's like, oh wow, that's not good. It's like someone just kidnapped him. A couple luchadors. So once again, this is the crossover. This is the Dark Order. I would assume. I don't know what the hell's going on. I don't know what the fuck's going on. Maybe Vince is going to be in charge of this, and it'll be called the Light Order. I have no fucking clue. But they have Raul Mendoza and Joaquin Wilde. They're picking the best so far to build it. What'd you think about this, Chris?
Their fucking Obi-Wan is Joaquin Wilde, not John Cena. We're okay.
It's gonna be great. I'm gonna eat steak.
It's such good shit. Don't sneeze around me. You know what? I have no idea what they're doing with the angle. They have a little crew building. I agree with you. Hopefully it's not a Dark Order thing, even though there was a kidnapping in the parking lot. You're right on that. Yeah. The match itself was okay. I don't know. I don't know what to say about this, Dane. Dane, what do you want me to say about a man getting kidnapped? Is it gonna be a? We originally thought this was gonna end up being a lucha faction. Apparently, we were wrong.
Yeah, obviously. I think we're really wrong. But I don't know. I don't know what you can tell me to make me feel better about this, but I'm pretty concerned that WWE is fucking up because they allowed Baron Corbin to kill Elias, and now they have luchadors stealing people from the Performance Center. What the fuck is going on?
I don't know. I feel like Austin Aries is behind all of this.
He probably is. Maybe Scooby-Doo. All right, let's get to the last match of NXT. We had the NXT North American Championship match. Keith Lee, Dominik Dijakovic, and Damian Priest. These guys kick the shit out of each other. They're all ridiculously agile based on their size. We all know that. And they had an awesome match. It's just now, can we keep the three of these motherfuckers away from each other for a minute? Just all three of them. Set them in different places. Let them work with some of the smaller talent to create different matches, because I like to see another one in the future, especially Dominik Dijakovic and Keith Lee work ridiculous together. But I need a little bit of space between this, and if you're not going to put the belt on either of them, it's time to take a break from it. But I will say the match was entertaining as fuck. Just some of the spots they did, once again, crazy as hell. Like the spot where Keith Lee had Damian Priest, nails Dominik Dijakovic with Damian Priest in the stomach, and then proceeds to powerbomb him 5 times on top of him. Just that type of strength. Some of it was awkward, but that's based on no crowd noise. And some of the stuff that was a little bit off where they kind of fucked up here and there was more noticeable, I think, because of that. At the same time, it's a fight, so it's not supposed to look pretty. The only thing I will say that I think might be a negative or something that people are going to a bit too much for a lot of these agile big guys is not, like, if there's one, great, make use of it. But a lot of them are going to the top rope like 4 or 5 fucking times in a match, and it gets a little bit like, okay, gotcha. Personally for me. But like I said, good match. Keith Lee won. Just create some different scenarios with the 3 of these guys going forward. But I thought it was a good match. How'd you like it, Chris?
I thought it was a really good match, and I agree with you on the spots. Sometimes, like, seeing that many big moves off the top rope for such big athletes can kind of diminish the rest of your roster. So, like, later on, if you want Leo Rush, for instance, to hit a moonsault on a guy and get a pin, I was like, well, Keith Lee did it, so and the guy kicked out. It's one of those weird things where you have to kind of float it in. But I also see why they did it, because there's no crowd, so you're just trying to hit big spots and make your match over or whatever. So it's almost like an indie feel a little bit to the match. I thought the match was very good. I like Dijakovic getting a win here. I guess he's going to be the opponent for Keith Lee again. So we're going to get a rehash of that. One thing I forgot to mention on the last match, Kushida just kind of disappeared. Is he going to go back in time and save Wild's life? Like, save him from getting kidnapped next week? Because, like, if they're going to do that, then I'm totally in on the storyline.
Well, one of the theories is, and you might not like this, so the 2 last opponents of Kushida were Wild and before him Raul Mendoza. There's a theory that Kushida might be the guy behind this.
Or he's just stuck in an infinite time loop until Alex Shelley slaps the shit out of him and they come back as a tag team.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I said.
No, I don't like that at all. But I can easily see it. I could easily see that being a thing. It's a very dumb thing. Kushida's the ultra baby face. But
So Hunter was telling me how great of a baby face you are. I decided that we're gonna make you a heel.
Okay.
Kushida's like, fine, I'm just hanging out with Shinsuke. I don't give a fuck at this point.
God damn it.
He's like, he took away my best friend, Alex Shelley. Now I don't care.
Like, I should have listened to Kenta. What the fuck? All right. Anyways, so at TNT, we started with the new AEW Dynamite. First thing they showed us was the tournament for the NXT, or the TNT, I should say, championship, which is great because it works 2 ways. It's going to be kind of like a TV title, so they perform it on the television show. And their television station's TNT, but their show's called Dynamite. So there you go. I actually think it's pretty clever.
So Dane, before we get into this, I did see some breaking news on this. I heard this was canceled.
Oh, the tournament itself?
I heard the tournament itself has been canceled until further notice.
Oh, man. Well, that's
as of today, per F4W Online. Prior to this show, I did read that they're postponing, which basically means canceled in the near future, which probably has a lot to do with them not being able to get all of these guys together for the rest of this tournament. So I'm assuming they're going to keep their positions based on the way AEW's done everything with statistics. But as of right now, I don't think next week you're going to get more tournament matches.
Well, for that's unfortunate, but guess that's going to have to be. But I guess we can still play with the 4 matches themselves for when they do play out in the future and kind of talk about that. But that does kind of suck ass. So what are you going to do? So Sean Spears is going to be going against Cody. Cody beat him on their last counter. Then we're having Sammy Guevara versus Darby Allin. Kind of mad that they didn't separate those 2 guys because it makes me think that Darby's going to win. He's one of my top guys to win it. On the other side of it, we have Kip Sabian going against Dustin Rhodes. and then Lance Archer against Colt Cabana. So, like I said, you would have one winner between Shawn Spears and Cody going against the winner of Sammy Guevara and Darby Allin, and then opposite of them, Kip Sabian and Dustin Rhodes, and the winner of Lance Archer and Colt Cabana. Then after that, the two of them will fight, and we will have our winner. So, are you looking forward to this? Do you like the idea of the championship itself, Chris? And I can send you the picture if you'd like me to, so you can kind of look at it too. Who do you got winning? Like, where do you think the course of these matches is going to go for the TNT Championship?
So for the television championship, which I said they should do, by the way, I think Lance Archer is going to win so that Cody and Lance can feud. And I think Darby will probably go on to the end of it from the other side just because he needs the wins, because I feel like he's still one of the most over people they have on their roster. I don't know what they're going to do with Colt Cabana. Maybe him and Dustin could have well, I don't even know. I'm not looking at the tournament bracket, but those two together could have a really fun, weird match. But my guess would be Lance Archer versus Darby Allin in the final. Lance goes over, gets the title. You get Cody versus Lance. Cody said he'd never challenge for the heavyweight title again, but maybe he wins this title. And that sets up something in the future for him, MJF.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I feel like Cody could lose to Shawn Spears, honestly. They could do that right the first thing from him getting fucked over because they like to do that. But more than likely, it would probably be Cody who wins that. And him and Darby kind of had some issues and we'll talk about that during the last match where Darby nailed him. So Darby beats Sammy Guevara. You have Cody against Darby Allin on the left side. On the right side, I would say, Kip Sabian and Colt Cabana have some issues outside of this, but I don't think either one of them are going to win. So I would actually have Dustin going against Lance Archer. Lance Archer beating Dustin for the right side. Darby Allin beating Cody for the left side. And then you have Darby Allin against Lance Archer, with Lance Archer getting the win over Darby Allin and becoming the first TNT championship, to give Jake the Snake Roberts and Lance Archer another prop to add to why they want to destroy Cody or whatever.
Yeah, and with Lance Archer, he could easily injure Darby. They could do something like that, and that makes Cody have to step into that role. As
like
Cody
he crossed the line.
Yeah, he crossed the line, and you have the mutual respect match between Darby and Cody. You could easily pull that out. But that would be my guess, is Darby should go over, somehow get fucked up, and then Cody versus Lance, which is where they're actually trying to go. I don't think Cody should cruise through the tournament, just because I feel like the fans really love Darby Allin. I mean, the fans are always going to be behind Cody to some extent, but you got to keep the crowd behind Darby as much as possible.
Yep.
Don't let it be an afterthought.
No, I agree. All right, so we started off AEW after the announcement of the brackets and the matches themselves with Toei Schiavone and Cody as commentary, and they were assisted with Pharaoh, the dog. And we had an awesome match, I think, with Kenny Omega and Trent Beretta, who's now just going by Trent. I keep on seeing it everywhere. Like, I actually like Trent Beretta. I think that's a pretty good name, but whatever. Trent, this is an awesome match, man. This was very New Japan-esque. I mean, in the sense of right at the beginning of the match, Aubrey or whoever the ref was, I couldn't remember, could not get control of them. They're destroying each other, just going into the audience. And finally, when it starts, they're just tagging the shit out of each other, and just a lot of good stuff. I'm trying to remember a certain spot with Trent. There was something that happened and I just rewatched this a little while ago. But either way, Kenny Omega got the one wing angel after a couple V triggers to Trent. And Omega helped Trent up after the match, and they fist bumped. And it was good stuff. I thought it was a good opening match. It was going on at the same time, that good match between Velveteen Dream and and what's his name? Oh wow, Bobby Fish was going on, and it was just two great wrestling matches. I was really enjoying it. So Wednesday nights, man, with all the shit's going on, I can't complain with some good wrestling, even though it's weird without audiences. How did you like this match, Chris?
Trent and Omega turned it up to 11, didn't they? Like, that
Yeah.
six sequence between them was fucking great. Channeled a little bit of the inner New Japan in both of those guys. Looked amazing.
Absolutely.
The question for me is, out of both names you could choose to go by, you choose Trent over Beretta? Like, why would you not go by just Beretta if you just have to drop one of them? I don't know. Good win. It made sense with booking wise, and Trent and Kenny were clearly, to me, the two best performers in the match.
Yep, and this was brought up not really by Excalibur, but they're doing a after show where Excalibur, Taz, and Jim Ross break down the match. Jim Ross said what a lot of us believe, and kind of same thing with SCU with Scorpio Sky, that he's like, Chuck's a great wrestler. He looks like he's put on some muscle, but Trent Beretta, if he ever chooses to go on a singles career, he could do some really damage. Like, he could be a really big competitor, and I think a lot of us feel that way. Too. It's not like the situation with Jungle Express, where I think that both Jungle Boy separately and also Luchasaurus could do a lot of good things as solo acts. But he's a damn good wrestler, man. I really enjoy it. And for his size, just like Dominik Dijakovic, those guys are tall and lanky, and they're doing springboards and backflips and all this type of shit like it's nothing. It's fucking crazy.
And I mean, Chuck is a great wrestler. I think Trent benefits by having been in the WWE system, in the New Japan system a little bit. So all of his stuff just looks so crisp, and he was great in that G1 tournament back in the day. And fucking, I don't know, man. He could be the spotlight. It's just, are you gonna turn Orange Cassidy and him both heel? Like, that's the thing, is like Orange Cassidy has to leave with one of them, I would assume.
That is the curious concept. But don't you even think, like, when they were a Pongi, like, he kind of outshined Rocky Romero too, like in the ring at least, not maybe talking.
Yeah, for sure. I think he's very solid in ring. And I don't know, man. It's such a way, like, him and Chuck not being together seems weird now, because I would like to have them have a tag run before they bailed out. Just they had some good matches. It's just like, and stuff.
Down the road, he would be probably good. It's like Scorpio Sky.
Yeah, and with Scorpio, it's a little different because I feel like he is just younger and better at this point in his career, whereas back in the day, I'd have been like, fucking, are you kidding me? Christopher Daniels is by far the best wrestler in this group. Yeah, it's a little weird. I think the Orange Cassidy thing makes it, maybe that's why they're trying to get him more involved with matches and stuff, so that breakup will be more epic, which, if so, great. But to me, like, Omega and Trent kind of stole the show in this match specifically, and maybe even throughout the show, to be honest. As far as wrestling goes, they looked phenomenal together, but I wouldn't expect anything less. But those guys are fucking great. Yeah, like I said, not taking anything away from Chuck. Like, Chuck looked really good 2 weeks ago in that was the match they had. It was a Pride and Powerful. Like, I'm trying to throw things off my mind from 2 weeks ago, but they looked really, really good. Like, Chuck had that great little promo afterwards, kind of stepping up for the team a little bit. So, not taking anything away from Chuck, but I think Trent is definitely, I mean, actually, Orange Cassidy is the most over person, but Trent is the person you could actually build around more as a wrestler, I guess.
Yeah, I agree. Next match was pretty good too. We had Akira Shida and actually trained by QT Marshall at that specific camp. Georgia's own Anna Jay. And, JR and Taz were talking about it. Akira Shida is one of my favorite female wrestlers in this. I really think that she's going to have a good match with Nyla Rose. I don't know if she'll take the title from her, but she's definitely someone that's one of my top females within AEW. I just think that she's good in the ring, and she's crisp and she lays her shit in. But I thought Anna Jay really took advantage of the situation and looked pretty damn good in the ring, and I was impressed by her. So Shida won with a knee to the back of the head, followed by a Falcon Arrow. Britt Baker was among the wrestlers at ringside for the match, and she and Shida had words before and afterwards while Britt Baker was enjoying what looked like a sandwich or a panini and threatened her with her shoe. Yeah, it was. And she let her know that she thought the match was boring. So that was her comeback to Shida. I actually really like Britt Baker. I also liked a little bit where like Tony was like, "Yeah, me and Britt really get along," and like Cody's like, "What do you mean you get along with Britt Baker? That you guys have been hanging out or some shit like that? You're married, Tony." He's like, "Oh, shut up!" Like I love the camaraderie between him and Cody throughout the night. I thought it was great. Very, very, very cute, if you will. But how did you like this match with Hikaru Shida and Anna Jay?
So I liked it a lot. I thought it was very good. I think Shida gave Anna Jay maybe a little too much offense. But different style of working with no crowd, right? I figured this was going to be a squash match, honestly, just based on where these people are at in their career. Anna Jay kind of just coming in, and Shida obviously about to feud with Britt Baker, who they're heavily behind. And man, if Britt Baker gets the shit super over, she definitely owes Tony Schiavone a steak, because the interaction between her and Tony Schiavone has been absolutely phenomenal. Tony Schiavone is getting fuckers over like he's Mean Gene. It's great, and I hate to say that he's filling that Mean Gene role, but there's nothing wrong with that. Someone needs to fill that role, and he's kind of nailed it on the head with this little feud. And to me, if you go back to that cruise ship, specifically the cruise ship promo she had, that was like the start of it, and they kept it up, and it's been really good. And I think Britt Baker has been talking to really good promo minds in the back, which there's a lot of, like, I don't know, Tully and fucking Arn, and coming in more solid with her promo. So I really liked this all around. I thought it was good. I thought it was a really good match. More surprised on the fact that Shida gave so much offense, but also it's a weird time, so they probably decided against a squash match. There's that. And Anna Jay looked really good in the ring.
Yep. All right, a video package about Jon Moxley's rivalry with Jack Hager aired. Moxley mentioned that they used to listen to the Jerky Boys together. Weird random artists to talk about with each other. I didn't need to include that the results, but I felt like you should know. What? I don't know if that was like a mess up in there. Sorry. Moxley and Hager will face off AEW's World Championship on Dynamite in 2 weeks. So their past within WWE, them knowing each other, them riding with each other, they kind of show that these guys have had history before. Like I said, they listen to Jerky Boys together, and they're going to be fighting for the championship in 2 weeks. And I believe the way that he phrased it, and I could be wrong, Jon Moxley said it was going to be an open arena match. So I don't know if that means that he does plan on doing something like that, where him and Jack Hager are going to fucking beat each other through the Blink audience. But I'm down for that. I'm down for a match between the two of them. Should be a lot of fun. Yeah, it's crazy. You know, you don't really remember that Jake is the next World Heavyweight Champion WWE. Correct me if I'm wrong, right?
Yes, and a IC champion. He's been involved in a lot of stuff, but he was one of Triple H's proteges, same as let's say Sheamus, for instance.
Gotcha.
It just never really clicked, and it's kind of the same time where you had some heel champions, like you had Ziggler, you had Sheamus, you had Jack Swagger. There's a lack of what I would call top tier talent in WWE as far as getting over. Not to take anything away from any of those guys, but if you go back in time and look at some of the heels they've had, you'll get what I mean, I guess.
Yeah. Man, this next part. We had Lance Archer going against Marco Stunt. Yeah. When they said that, I was like, why? He fucking murdered him. Honestly, I will give you this. I think Marco Stunt did get a little bit too much offense. I would have had him double murder him instead, if I'm to be completely honest. But it seems like they could have given him, like, why would Marco agree to having that match? That isn't like his first match here. He's called the Murder Hawk, and he's being trained by Jake the Snake Roberts in kayfabe. Hey Marco, do you want to wrestle him? Sure. Like, the payoff must have been pretty fucking supreme for him to do that. But he won with the choke slam and his blackout slam after the match. Archer choke slam stunt from the ring apron onto the wrestlers at the ringside, all the little baby faces. And we had another video. I believe this is where the video where Jake Roberts aired, kind of promoting him again and just being creepy as ever. It looks, Colt Cabana was on commentary. They're going to face next week. They had a little bit of stare off while Lance was leaving. So, yeah, he's going to rip through Colt Cabana pretty easily. But, good stuff. Did you feel bad for Marco Stunt? Do you think that he applied for any life insurance before this?
I would hope so. My takeaway from this match, because it was kind of a squash match, and I would say that maybe he got a little too much offense. It's one of those things where it's like, well, did he get a little too much offense because for TV or whatever? Lance Archer, super dominant. I like what they're doing with him. And I also like Colt Cabana on commentary. And it's really weird to say this about AEW, but having like 10 commentators that are better than most of WWE's commentators is probably not a bad place to be in life. You know what I mean? Like Colt Cabana's not shabby on commentary. They have Taz, they have Tony Schiavone, they have JR, they have Excalibur, they have all of these guys, and even sometimes like MJF and Jericho like randomly showing up on commentary. It kind of shows that you can have good commentary without it necessarily being your set. This is our 3-piece commentating team or whatever. So I enjoyed that as well, which is probably not going to be talked about as much, but something I enjoyed. And as far as the video package, I thought it was very, very good. Is this it? Are we leading into the Brody Lee thing? Because I want you to kind of take that away.
Yes, we will be right now. Another video of Brody Lee bossing around the Dark Order aired. It was very comical. At one part, he kind of threw one of the guys out, and the other guy yawned, and he asked him if he was having problems at home, being very personal. It's like I said, it's definitely got Vince-isms in it, and I find it interesting where they're going. I hope that this character kind of goes to different places, but I still get a Daniel Plainview from the character himself too. I think Brody Lee's at least doing a good job acting it out and coming off convincing. So it was another Dark Order. I like where the Dark Order is going now. A hell of a lot more than Saget with the beard and Evil Uno was doing with the putties a couple of months ago. That was terrible. So, how did you like the video of Brody Lee?
Is it okay to say it was fine? And that now I've maybe had my limit on let's make fun of Vince, and I want something different?
Yeah, I think let's chill from the Vince-isms and kind of make the character yourself now, and if there's gonna be stuff, be more subtle. Like I said, kind of embody what I believe to be whatever that character is that's there, that's kind of Daniel Plainview-esque, and kind of make him more demented and lay away from the Vince McMahon stuff. I definitely agree with you on that.
Yeah, I'm fine with a couple shots here and there, but also the thing about Vince is he has the money, the power in the company. So it'd be like if Cody was doing it, and you'd be like, oh, well, it kind of makes sense. But like Brody Lee doesn't have the money, the power, or the company. He's just a guy that works for the company and has like a crew. So doing it multiple weeks, unless you're going to have crew backlash, it's going to start wearing on you very quickly. Whereas where I thought they were taking this, and it may have been a bad direction also, would have been Matt Hardy kind of with this ragtag group of dudes, which is what they're promoted as, just guys that are found on the internet, not having any life, right, to join the Dark Order. That seemed more fitting to Matt's character, whereas Brody Lee with the Vince thing, I hope they kind of shy away from it and give him some monster ass shit to do where he's demolishing people very, very soon that aren't just part of his group.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I did like this next match because it kind of set up a cool match for the future, getting their quote-unquote Haas guys to have some matches. But we had the Natural Nightmares, which is Dustin Rhodes and QT Marshall, with Brandy in their corner going against the Dark Order member 8 and 9. I like how it's just randomly. It's 8 and 9. And I like on commentary, who was it with? Oh, Cody said to Tony, he was like, do you know why 6 afraid of 7? And I forgot he just completely screwed it up. And it was kind of funny because like, Tony,
he messed up 7, 8, 9.
Yeah, he did. It was pretty funny. I don't know if he meant to do it, but either way, they were just generic masked man from the Dark Order. The Nightmares won their Dynamite debut with the tandem cutter finisher. And afterwards, Luke Harper came by. Him and Dustin had a little bit of a stare down. And then Luke Harper went in the ring, took the guy that lost, gave him a huge power bomb, looked at the other guy, pointed at him, and then pointed at the guy on the ground. I guess as a signal not to fuck up again. And, yeah, that was it. And just basically setting up more story development within the Dark Order with Brody Lee, but also putting over this new tag team with Dustin Rhodes and QT Marshall. How'd you like it? And do you want to see a Dustin Rhodes versus Brody Lee match?
Yeah, I'm sure they'll have a great match. Like, give them time, they'll have a very good match. It'll be very old school, but they'll have a very good match. That's the weird thing about Dustin being in that tournament is that I'm assuming the Dark Order would kill him at some point during said tournament, which is why I didn't have him actually in the finals. But yeah, no, it's interesting to see Dark Order just throwing out random numbered people, and hopefully some workers are getting some time in there. It'd be really funny if they start putting people like Kip Sabian, like really good workers underneath the mask. Like even some, like, like you could do something crazy and put Omega under a mask and like a swimsuit or something and send him out there almost like Homicide. It'll be interesting to see how long they keep this up with just random people.
That's funny. All right. So next thing we had a video package of Chris Jericho. He sent in a video, and I like the way that they did this. The way that they're like throwing it off to like, well, like Tony Schiavone sets it up like, we got this from a source. And we're going to, display the video stuff now. And Chris Jericho sent a video of him in his hot tub. Vanguard 1 flew in, and Jericho once again offered him a spot in the inner circle. Jericho gave him a tiny T-shirt. A Vanguard flew away with it. Jericho then released the hounds and a bunch of cute, mostly small dogs, and chihuahuas and everything included, chased down the drone. Just a fun... stupid segment, and I really enjoyed it, and I laughed, and I like the stuff going between Matt Hardy and Chris Jericho. It's gonna, like I said, if you're gonna be silly and do this type of stuff, if you could just redo that one moment where Hogan is looking inside the mirror, or let it be Y2J with Sammy, and for some reason the announcers are like seeing, Matt Hardy on the other side of the mirror while Hulk Hogan is freaking the fuck out. But for some reason, Sammy doesn't. Like, that makes any goddamn sense. Just redo the whole entire stupid thing. I will die crying. But in all reality, I like this feud. It's a lot of fun. It's gonna be silly, I think. What'd you think about it, Chris?
It's fun. That's the best thing to say about it, and it also takes the immediate rematch of Moxley and Jericho kind of out of the picture, which has been great. And the thought of Mr. Matt Hardy riding in on a dilapidated boat inside of Chris Jericho's endless pool. I'm sure he has one. He has to have an endless pool with Matt Hardy on Skarsgård, the dilapidated boat, with V1 flying above him and Reby playing piano. Yeah, those are things legends are made of. No, I mean, it was great. It reminded me with the Send Out the Hounds, and I'll give TNA credit for this. One thing that they did during the final deletion is Vanguard 1 showed up, and he sent a bunch of mini drones inside of Jeff Hardy's house, which Jeff Hardy had just got done lawn mowing just a bunch of his Hardy symbols into a lawn, because that's what Jeff Hardy does on his off time, I guess. And then Jeff Hardy started swatting them away with an acoustic guitar. Very much had that feel, which makes me think that Matt is very much involved in these, and the mind of Matt Hardy and Chris Jericho combined to do these weird segments have been very entertaining, and look forward to see what is going to happen next between those two. But yeah, great. I love the tiny T-shirt too. He's like, you can join the inner circle with the little baby T-shirt. Was probably the absolute best. And also Jericho just being shirtless with a bottle of champagne and a scarf on, like an asshole.
I mean, you have the two guys behind some of the most brilliant segments in wrestling, that not necessarily wrestling wise, but with the Ultimate Deletion and then the Festival of Friendship, and you take those two minds that can take wrestling extremely seriously, but also know how to do it comedically really well. And we're going to have some fun shit, and we'll probably end up having some type of weird match with the Inner Circle with Chris Jericho going against Matt Hardy on the compound, I would assume, especially with the limited resources we have right now.
Yeah, and the fact that Jeff Hardy's contract will eventually be up, WWE, yes. And maybe Brother Nero
I knew you'd come. I love that. I love that Chris Jericho said it just like that too. Like, he's like, Vanguard 1, I knew you'd come.
It's shit legends made up. Like, if you don't believe how over that shit was, watch the WrestleMania pop for when the Hardys showed up.
Yep.
And what WWE did to derail what that was is absolutely fucking diabolical in some sense.
I agree. Well, we also had another segment with the Young Bucks, and basically Matt was visiting Nick and talking about them training at Nick's house to get ready for his in-ring return. I think they should have cut to like an 80s montage with like Push It to the Limit playing with the two of them working on it. But I think that's something that they would probably do on Being the Elite and probably not on this. But good to get an update. You know, we obviously know that it's actually about his wife just gave birth to a baby, and they're, you know, he has some time with her. But we'll be seeing Matt back sometime in the future, which is good. I wish that we would get a match with fucking Adam Page and Matt Jackson before that happens, but maybe that's not going to happen. I don't know.
Yeah, it doesn't seem that way. Yeah, fun segment. Not as good as what they do on Being the Elite, but it was a fun segment. I'm kind of with you. Like, if you're gonna cheese it up with these guys, and I kind of like them, yeah, like overly cheesing it up, because I still think that Adam Page is the babyface coming out of this. Still, I'm clinging on to hope, because I don't think the Young Bucks are the babyfaces coming out of this. Whether like Adam Page turns heel or not, I don't know that they're gonna be looking the same way. Yeah, doing 80s cheesy shit and then having them like demolish Adam Page or something indirectly would probably be a good build-up. Where you're like, oh, these guys are fun. Why did they do that?
Yeah. All right. And the last match, we had Shawn Spears and Sammy Guevara going against Cody and Darby Allin. It's a fun match. Cody and Darby Allin tagging together. It's like you know, Sting from 87 until like 94, and then 97 Crow Sting. Like, you know, they're together. Yeah. Anyway. They're tagging together.
Eric Young
The
is their
Stingers.
manager, dressed as Sting also.
No, what? Well, Sting could like come out as their, that'd be great. That'd be. Anyways, Spears and Guevara bet on the match quite a few times, going back to what they were doing of making bets and gambling on it. And Guevara tried to introduce a chair, which distracted Allen and allowed Spears to roll him up for the win. After the match, Allen knocked Cody down with the forearm. Cody was trying to be like, it's okay, man, don't worry about it. And Allen just wasn't having it. And we're setting up some stuff in the future, which I'm sure we're going to get, Cody and Darby Allin, which, hey, man, first match Monday night of Wednesday Night Dynamite, and awesome match between Darby Allin and Cody. Oh, no, that was Sammy Guevara, but that's right. Cody and Darby Allin have had a great match in the past, so I'm looking forward to that. They seem to be adding a little bit of spice to that. And, of course, the bad guys get a win, including Shawn Spears, who really could have used one. So, good stuff. How'd you like this last match?
Shawn Spears is that perfect 10 guy that used to hang out with Tully, right?
Yeah, where is Tully?
I don't know. Is Tully also in the inner circle? Who's in the inner circle?
Rick Rude, Ted DiBiase.
We're not talking about people that got kicked out of NWO.
The randoms. Vincent, Miss Elizabeth.
I don't know. Vincent was there for a while, and so was Miss Elizabeth, circa 1998 to 1999.
Hey, Liz, remember when we got a divorce? Oh, yeah, years ago.
So yeah, the weirdest thing about this was the Darby hitting Cody spot, right? Which sets up to this tournament, but now the tournament's postponed. And now, is the idea that Darby is Sting? Is he just disagreeing with the elite in the inner circle? Because if that is the idea, okay. But if the idea is like, we want to get heat on Darby Allin to make Cody our number one babyface, I don't necessarily agree with it. I'm hoping it's the latter. But yeah, I mean, the match itself was really good. It sets up a very interesting concept between Darby and Cody, because I could make the argument that as great as Cody's been on the mic and stuff, he's also lost a lot of matches, and Darby Allin has this natural charisma, very much like Jeff Hardy, that could easily be surpassed if you give him some wins. So it's a weird thing to do.
I agree, man. Just good stuff all around, man. Love a lot of the wrestlers involved. I thought NXT was awesome. As bittersweet as the fact that we're not getting TakeOver, the fact that we're getting those matches broken down for main events for these next coming NXTs that they recorded is pretty exciting. In AEW, until, I don't know exactly if they're going to keep on recording in Norcross, or if they're going to find other situations. The fact that they've pre-recorded, we're going to have some stuff for a little while, and I have to appreciate any wrestling that we're getting, because we could be in nothing. So, and if that happens, me and Chris will find, like we've said, other ways to really, hope that you guys will enjoy different types of segments, different types of talks, go over different wrestlers, maybe do watch-alongs. We can do some lists and stuff like that, but really provide some fun content. But until we don't have any wrestling to talk about, live stuff or going forward, we're going to keep on keeping up with all that stuff. So I thought this was a really good episode. Appreciate everyone that listened. And we'll have another episode later on this weekend talking about our predictions and also SmackDown, our predictions for WrestleMania, the show that needed 2 nights or whatever the fuck they're calling it. And we'll give our predictions for that. But Chris, say goodbye to all the wonderful people out there.
Before I say goodbye, I have one question for you, sir. What if the place to film is somewhere in Cameron, North Carolina? Maybe on a compound of some sort, known as the Hardy compound. You feeling that or not?
Hey, if they wanted to do a whole entire episode on the Hardy compound, I would have no problem with that. Just do the whole, just record it like that too. And I mean, honestly, without the wackiness, I hope that they say fuck it with WrestleMania and kind of do some cinematic shit and don't care about the fact like, oh, it's wrestling. Like just fucking make it awesome. You know, we can understand. It's not real.
Make wrestling awesome. We
It's
all love
that.
It's still real to us, damn it. No, all jokes aside, you can get me to @Chris R. Patton on Twitter and @Christopher.R.Patton on Facebook, @Chris R. Patton on Instagram. Less accounted for. I'm going to do some acoustic music later on this Friday if you guys are into that. Just trying to support local musicians. Donations will be out there for everyone. It's just going to go to Nashville Fund for musicians who are struggling right now, obviously during the crisis, not being able to perform. So you guys check out all that, and we'll definitely have some more wrestling talk. And Dane, I'll pass this back over to you, bud.
All right. Thank you so much for passing it over. You guys can find me at DaneAlves42 on Twitter and Dane Alves on Facebook. Hit me up. Let me know what you like about the show. Let's have a conversation. Yo. And also join any of the wonderful social media platforms at Geek Vibes Nation. Join the conversation. That's Geek Vibes Nation on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Go to geekvibesnation.com. You'll find a website with a bunch of news articles for different geek topics, including comic books, video games, wrestling. We go over a lot of different news sources, and then you can also find different audio platforms that we're located on Spotify, Stitcher, SoundCloud, iTunes. Basically, if you can search it, you'll find us. Just search Wrestling Geeks Alliance, and you'll find all of our episodes. Listen to us weekly. We'll have another show, like I said, Saturday that we're going to record. We'll have it out later on that weekend. And be safe, guys. Love each other. Be there for each other. Let the Geek Vibes be with you. And, of course, peace out.